tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
to the November 16th, 2023 meeting of the Budget Recommendations Committee for the town of Exeter. Welcome, everyone. I'm Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee, and also on the Water and Sewer and Public Works General Committee. We'll proceed with introductions. Chris?
Hey, Chris Suter, and Vice Chair and Library, Parks and Rec, and Human Services Committee.
Evening, everyone. Corey Stevens, Finance Director.
Good evening, Assistant Town Manager Melissa Roy.
Russell Dean, Town Manager.
Andrew Elliott, Department of Public Works General Subcommittee.
Amanda Kelly, Department of Public Works General and Parks and Rec, Health and Human Services, and Library.
Tim Gwynn, Police and Fire.
Judy Wine, Police and Fire Chair.
Good evening, Chris Zigmont, Crestview Drive, and on the General Government Subcommittee.
And Anthony Zwan, 7 Marlborough Street, serving on the Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
7
Thank you.
Marlborough Street.
And we also have off mic Select Board Representatives Nico Papakonstantis, the chair, and Julie Gilman, as well as many members of our staff who will be speaking here and be introduced as they come up. So tonight we'll be discussing the capital improvements program. I had sent around a little cheat sheet that people could follow along with. We're going to, in general, well, actually that's not true. My original thought was I was going to just follow the book, but there's some scheduling issues that we're working through with some of the attendees, so we'll be slightly going out of order. Basically what we will do, as you'll notice on the sheet, there are a number of management deferrals that are described in the overall budget book, and we will make note of those. There's certainly, it's certainly the purview of this committee to rediscuss some of those items if we like, and if we want to agree in general. I think the subcommittees that are highlighted in the cheat sheet have supported the deferrals, but we are certainly welcome to discuss those. Otherwise, we will move on very quickly. So I'd like to start with Parks and Rec. Greg Bisson has recently had surgery and is fading fast, so we'd like to get him while he's still somewhat.
A lot of sleepless nights.
So
Let's see how medication speaks.
So what I would do is I'll introduce the item, and then the subcommittee in charge of that will sort of, in combination with the department staff, sort of go through what we are proposing, or what is proposed, and what the subcommittee's recommendation is. So thank you, Greg, for joining us.
Thank you for moving me up.
And Parks and Rec subcommittee is headed by Chris Suter and assisted by Amanda Kelly and Liz Canada. So the first item is what we're showing is number 4, which is the 10 Hampton Road renovation. This is on page 5 of the CIP book, and the select board has approved this project. There are some grants and other funding mechanisms that are beyond my pay grade. So Russ, if you could, either between you or Greg, sort of bring us up to speed on what's happening with this one.
Yeah, so this project is currently in design right now. We have enlisted JSA Architects to do that work. They are working on the plans, and that is coming along well. We have, Greg, do you want to?
Yeah, well, bring it back. Last year, we put it in there as a placeholder to keep you guys informed. Last year, this year actually, sorry, it's melding together. We received the Community Center Development or Incentive Program, grant for approximately $996,000. 155 of that, which is our own funds from the town. We used a variety of different funding sources, the Park Improvement Fund, the Rec Revolving Fund, and the impact fees, along with money that we had already previously spent, which was a anomaly when a grant is allowing you to have matching funds that actually you're already spent on. So we were the highest scoring project in the state of New Hampshire for this program, looking to make it an accessible, energy efficient, usable community center space. So we are working, as Russ said, with GSA, and hopefully in the next couple months we'll start construction and demo, and hopefully within 6 to 8 months we're in there and permanently moved out of 10 Hampton Road, or moved permanently to 10 Hampton Road.
Thank you. Chris, do you have any comments on behalf of the subcommittee?
No, I'd just like to say that, we're really thrilled that they've been able to, get some outside funds. That's really something that we had asked about and really impressed upon that being an important thing to do, and they have done so, and so, just happy to see it happening.
Just in terms of logistics, Bob, the committee, I don't know if the committee needs to make a formal recommendation on this because it's already been approved.
I was going to say we would support the decision.
Okay.
Just to throw that out there. You're right, we're not, obviously, we don't have any skin in the game at this point.
Just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Save your skin.
So any other questions by the committee? Then I would entertain a motion to support, from a budgetary standpoint, the Select Board's decision to move ahead with this project and fund it internally accordingly for matching grant funds.
So moved.
Second, for discussion?
Discussion?
Someone?
Second.
You're discussing it, you're seconding it, or discussing it?
Oh, I thought you had just seconded.
She moved it.
Oh, you moved it. I'll second it.
Thank
I
you.
moved something.
Discussion time.
So sometimes when we discuss grants, we, obviously this is a done deal on the level of the select board, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
But sometimes when we have grants, we put a contingency statement in of some sort, so as not to expend funds if the grant doesn't come through, but I suppose in this circumstance that doesn't apply?
The grant's already approved.
They already got it.
It's there.
We have access to the funds.
Okay.
We have been awarded, Greg and his team were able to successfully get it awarded, so we are good to go.
Great.
It won't be on the warrant in any way.
Fantastic.
Great. Further questions? All those in favor of supporting this project at 10 Hampton Road renovation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is the Parks Improvement Fund, which is number 8 on our list.
Page 14.
And this is on,
Page 14.
again, page 14.
Greg, were you able to bring any lists of things that you did this past year or things that you have in the docket for next year?
Yeah, unfortunately I was not.
Okay.
Well, it's in the book. If you look at page 14.
And I can go into some
He goes through
explanation.
5 projects that add up to about $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's, for,
So just,
okay.
for the committee's illumination, this is requested at about $100,000 or at $100,000 every year. Some years it doesn't get funded that way. This year, the management has recommended that this be reduced to $50,000 for this year. So sorry to interrupt, Chris.
No, that's good. Yeah, I just think it's good for people to kind of be reminded of not just what I'm looking to do this year, which you can read in the book, but also things that we've been able to accomplish with $100,000 in the past, just to see how important it is. And I just like to support keeping the funding at $100,000 so we can continue to maintain our parks.
And I agree with that.
Okay. Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd have to say, especially given the growth track of our town, it's hard to imagine cutting it. I'd support keeping it at 100.
And again, if you look on page 14, there are I don't know if these are the top 5 projects or the easiest to explain, but there are 5 projects that, add up to the $100,000. And one thing Greg is very good at is spending the money that we give him to make improvements to the parks.
And one thing, Bob, I harken back to, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs upgrading, and last year we weren't able to accomplish as much as we wanted to because quotes came in a lot higher. So we had to defer some of the major renovations, like some ball fields and everything, but we tried to focus on things that were a lot of safety issues that were brought up to us. Like one of the things, and thank you, Corey, for bringing it, this year we upgraded our gangway on our town dock. We got multiple reports of people slipping down them, and we don't want someone getting hurt. We did do some infield improvements at 10 Hampton Road that needed to be done. Again, they developed lips, and so we did some of that in-house, some of it, as I mentioned last meeting, but some of it we did have to contract out, like the infield mix and everything. We have a fiber line ready to go in at Hampton Road because actually out of all the town facilities, the pool building was not on the town network. So it wasn't a very robust thing to get it in there because that way we can monitor everything. We did ADA compliance upgrades at the lower tennis courts. We added windscreens to help that. $25,000 of it, like I mentioned earlier, is going towards 10 Hampton Road renovations. And then one of the pressing things is the garage at our rec park, our rec facility here on Court Street was leaking so bad that, water was just raining down anytime. So to keep that functional until we have a permanent place for our parks department to go, we needed to replace the roof. So, they're not the most glamorous of projects, but they're all needed. And again, we have a lot of things that we need to improve upon, but one of the things is, thank you for your support, but we want to make sure that we keep the parks up to date, and this fund helps.
Andrew?
Yeah, just to point out that, $25,000 did go to Hampton Ave, right? So it's not, strictly speaking, a parks improvement fund. It could be a renovation fund. It could be a lot of other funds. And the town wants 50. I would support what the town is recommending. If it was strictly for park improvement,
Well, we're looking at that $25,000 as improvement to the parking lot when the renovation is done, because ever since we acquired 10 Hampton Road, that's become the go-to parking lot for all of our athletes using the park. So it's kind of a joint effort.
Understand.
Yep.
A quick question on you had mentioned ADA improvements at the pool, and we obviously, tonight are going to be discussing ADA improvements on a town-wide basis. How does that get divvied up? Would your ADA improvements be part of the maintenance fund for the town, or that ADA fund, or is this separate in your fund?
It would be separate. Yeah.
So the ADA improvements associated with the pool would be paid for out of the Parks Improvement Fund?
Correct.
The different buckets of money can support ADA projects.
Got it.
So it could be spread out.
I just wanted to clarify since we do have an ADA fund.
One other question?
Sure.
Just this fund is a separate fund. It doesn't go to the general, right? So it carries over year to year?
Correct.
What's the current fund balance?
I'm looking here. Currently, right now, $27,593.
And that's taking into account the things that we've contemplated, exactly, committed projects for the year. So not all of them have been executed on yet?
Yes.
If they were all to get executed on, that's what you'd be looking at for a balance.
So then we're carrying over 25, so we'd actually have, if we put in 50.
You just said that,
If you were to execute on all the projects, you'd have 27 left.
Yep.
That's something, Greg's also not done with the year. I don't know if you have other things in mind as well.
Things that haven't been expended yet, we're getting ADA stations that can live AED stations at the rec park. Sorry, so that way it's year round. The park is used year round, so we're trying to get that. And there's a couple other things that we haven't expended yet.
Todd?
Maybe more a question for Russ than anything, but in follow-up to Andrew's question and a couple of comments you made, you mentioned some repairs to buildings, and it just instantly raised the question as to how this fund is being used. Because I think I was under the impression that this was money that was purely expended on improving our existing parks and not on fixing garages or buildings. In fact, if you're doing those things, isn't there some other way of accounting for that? Because I'm troubled by that. So if someone could answer that before we approve this Parks Improvement Fund amount, I would like to be brief. Pardon me?
So the Parks Improvement Fund is only used for capital projects, with a definition of capital projects that everyone adheres to, and the trustees oversee the money. The repairs that Greg is speaking about are roof repairs, which would prolong the life of the asset. Therefore, it's a capital investment, not a repair. But all the projects that get contemplated are of a certain dollar amount and add value to the parks.
There were, we're talking about a garage that is part of the department's facility, but it's not a park. I sort of be nitpicky about it, and you mentioned something about trustees, so I'm just trying to understand it. And I assume Russ you're watching all of this, right. And Russ is watching it, so it's all above board, but I'm trying to understand it, that's all.
And the Parks Maintenance Fund, when it was created, contemplated that facility work.
I think it's a relevant question just in the face of what we're doing on 10 Hampton as well.
Fair enough.
Because 10 Hampton is not a park, right? It's the Parks and Rec department, the future home of our Parks and Rec department, and it's going to take a lot of money to get it up to speed. But I'm not, I just want to be sure that we're not using this fund doing that.
What was the cost on redoing the roof? Just ballpark it.
$6,500.
Okay, so $6,500.
Yeah.
All right. And was some of that money used because some of the other projects were just so high, but the contractors that you couldn't do them?
Yeah,
or is it just because the roof was going to
The roof was failing and our Parks Department would have been homeless.
Okay.
So it's hard to maintain the parks if you don't have a place to store all your parks equipment.
And I'm not questioning the need, I'm just questioning the way we're accounting for the accounting. And making sure that we're, when we're voting to improve our parks, that in fact that's what we're voting for, is to improve our parks. Just a thought.
Is there a reason why that, you said $25,000 to do the paving work at 10 Hampton Road?
Part of the improvements of 10 Hampton Road will be parking lot modifications. Right now it's a zigzag, so that is expanding parking for the ball fields as well as the community center.
So is there a reason why that can't be part of that $1 million project that we just supported?
That is.
Okay, so that's not going to be paid for out of this fund?
No, it is paid for out of the fund, but it's part of our match.
The town had to come up with a match.
All right. Okay.
So we use that.
So it's, in addition to actual money, it's maybe projects in kind that we would take responsibility for, and that got it. Yeah. You okay?
Can I have one more, Bob? Thank you. So I think with the 25,000 going over and other people wanting 100, if we got to like maybe 75,000, which would give them the full 100 in the bucket, I think that would be where I sit personally.
Greg, are you anticipating that there will be 25,000 left in the fund at the end of the year, or that it will be expended?
It'll be expended down, yeah.
To zero, or close to zero?
Close.
All right, so you're not expecting to have 25 in the end. Okay, I want to make sure I understood that.
All right, so just to make sure, not to micromanage here, because what Corey's saying is the projects that are contemplated now, right, that are on the books, or at least that our finance director is aware of, will leave us with $27,000 at the end of the year. Right. You're saying that there are other projects that you have in mind that would eat all of that up.
What's not on his list is things that had been approved that we haven't expended funds for yet. The AED towers that will go at the different parks, doors at the pool facility, and there's one other thing that's, sorry, fading in the back of my head.
Okay. So right now, the request by the department is $100,000. Management has recommended it be reduced to 50. I would entertain motions or further discussion on how we want to proceed.
I just want to make a quick comment, and I don't want to make this meeting any longer than it needs to be, but I think, and I get it, I don't like hearing that Parks Improvement Fund money had to be used towards a $6,500 roof. Nobody wants to hear that, but then you have to also think about the fact that he had to use that money to fix the roof because he didn't have that money in another budget to fix the roof that was failing. So there's the other thing. It's like that apparently there's not enough money in Greg's budget.
Facilities maintenance budget.
To take care of that. And it's something that had to be done.
Well, it's also part of the matching funds for that grant.
No, I'm talking about the roof repair or roof replacement for the garage.
Okay.
I'm not talking about so I just want to point that out to folks as well, that it seems like unfortunately Greg's budget was not sufficient to take care of basic needs for the department. Not fluff, not extra this or extra that. It was basic needs for the department were not being met with his budget. So it's
Yeah, I was just going to say, we had the same conversation last year about the number and what the number would be, so it's something that we've come back to again. I mean, I think, speaking for the group here, when we looked through the budget and we looked at budget increases and what everything added up to in the end, we were trying to create a spending plan that essentially reflected, the best possible plan we could put forward. And in order to do that, we had to make some reductions in some of these expenses. And I just wanted to mention that before you go and vote, that was our intent all along in creating this schematic.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
We would agree. Chris?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I realize the budget numbers are always hard to hit. I think one of the things I really like about investing in parks and keeping that level funded over time is that it's a pretty democratic thing that everybody of all stripes gets to use the parks, and it's there for everybody. And at the rate of growth, the new homes being proposed and built, and just the increase of our neighbors, we need to, level funding, maybe it doesn't even cut it, right? Maybe growth there. And I always feel like parks always takes the hit, always gets the elbow, always gets the jab. And they're there for, the best part about it is there for everybody. So I would really, I'd love to see us entertain a motion to recommend holding at 100,000.
Well, that's where we are in the meeting.
And another thing, if I could mention too, that part of the budgeting process this year from the administration perspective was going through and looking at potential warrant articles, looking at potential fund balance spending, looking at major capital projects that we have in the queue, and trying to limit the amount of overall impact, if you will, on the total budget. And so it was an attempt to fund in a partial way, and I know it doesn't get all the way there, but it was done with intent.
Yeah, well,
So
I know how hard you guys worked to scrub the budget before we even got it, so.
Yeah.
Just a brief statement again. I mean, just before someone makes a motion and before we vote, I'm hearing Mr. Dean. I'm concerned about what I already said about the way the Parks Improvement Fund is being, the process of how that money's being spent, and particularly in anticipation of us moving into 10 Hampton Road. So I will be supporting the management decision of the 50,000 for that reason, for those reasons, regardless of what the motion is that's ultimately out there.
Okay. Judy?
I'm persuaded by some of these arguments in favor of the 100,000, but I'm also remembering we have added 2 positions, have we not?
Where?
Townwide
to
or?
the budget, yeah, townwide.
Yes, well, in the water department and the part-time welfare.
Welfare,
Yep.
yeah.
And a water treatment plant operator.
something for us to keep in mind in terms of the bottom line, where we end up.
That's what I'm hearing from Mr. Dean.
Right. Okay, still waiting for a motion.
Well, I'm supportive of Andrew's view, just going down to 75. Seems like a reasonable in the road.
So we got 50, 75, and 100 on the table.
we got and nary a motion to be made, so.
Nobody wants to pull the string.
Subcommittee has-
for the Parks Improvement Fund.
I'll second that.
Wow.
Judy.
75.
So 75, and as the fund, the projects currently stand, added to the 27 would give us around 100,000, and if Greg spends that money, he would still have $75,000, just so everybody's clear on where we are.
So we can't make a motion for 100,000?
When this gets voted one way or the other, then that's the motion on the table right now.
Okay.
Like I said,
So if we vote no, it doesn't go to 50, right?
if we vote no, then someone can make a motion to do something else.
Okay.
Like I said, I was waiting for motions.
I want to be sure. This is getting a little fuzzy for me.
I was waiting for motions.
Which, by the way, you said,
Judy stepped up to the plate. Yeah.
when you're talking about AED machines, I thought you said ADD machines. I was like, ooh,
I need one of those.
what's that for?
ADD machine.
I'm going to the park.
So there's a motion and seconded to fund the Park Improvement Fund at $75,000 for fiscal year 2024. And since it's bound to be split, I will go with a show of hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm sorry, keep your hands up, please, so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have how many people here? I forget.
Just say vote, and then we'll just vote.
So 5 ayes out of 9 people, so the ayes have it. I will just for form say all opposed.
Nay.
Wait, there's 5.
4 nay.
Greg, you're supposed to vote. Oh, are you medicated?
You're medicated, we'll let you get away with it.
No medications right now.
Yeah.
I'm driving.
Is that somewhat clear, Joanna, as to what we did? Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, the last one, Greg, is our number 9, but the Planet Playground renovation, page 15.
Something that's been a recurring theme the last few years is Planet Playground. Between Russ, Melissa, and myself, we're close to getting the company to officially let us try to acquire it, which is great. But in there, we did a lot of due diligence last year. We got a design. We're actually applying for LWCF, so one of the things that's contingent if we do not get LWCF, which is Land Water Conservation Fund grant, this will not move forward on the warrant article. And we're also creating a subcommittee that will be going out to help fundraise to offset some of the cost and add other amenities to it, like a pavilion, possibly some picnic tables, like make it more of just a playground.
ADD machines.
That would be based outside of there, Chris. So.
In my house.
Question?
Tom?
So just, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say as a reminder that the recommendation on this was to go forward with it from fund balance for the town's portion of the project. And if it did not materialize, the grant did not materialize, then we would recommend the sidewalk CRF plug-in.
I remember that. I had that.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I do still have a question. How does, are you in a position to comment on the land that this sits on, just relative to the cost of it? Is that being addressed in any kind of a way or not? Because I assume these funds are purely for the playground itself. Am I correct in that?
Correct. And the plan for the acquisition is that we would look to use ARPA funds for that. So that would pay for the acquisition.
Okay.
I can't get into a tremendous amount of detail about that, but I can say that it's progressing and going forward.
I get it.
Going well.
But to be clear, these funds would not address the purchase of the
That's
land.
correct.
This is
Strictly
purely,
renovation,
this is
demo.
purely for the playground.
But I can also say that we actually can't apply for LWCF until we own the property. So this is a process that's happening behind the scenes. If it is not successful, we actually can't even
Yeah.
apply. So
Yeah.
it would, if we are successful, then we'll go in and submit the grant and then we'll go that way. But there is a domino effect.
And again, if this goes forward, even if the funds come from fund balance, then this will still go on the warrant, correct? With a statement about matching or not?
Yes, it needs to go on the warrant because in order to appropriate unassigned fund balance, we have to go through the town meeting process.
Righto. And so then there'll be one of those statements about matching funds, et cetera, right?
We'll actually
Contingent on matching funds?
And we will know,
Yeah.
as long as things progress as they're going, we'll know by deliberative session if we're successfully received the grant.
Okay.
That way we can announce that deliberative session.
As part of the
and
board.
advertise it and, or pull it, or renovate it, or revise it to what
Okay.
Russ mentioned.
Chris, you have any comments on behalf of the subcommittee?
Nope.
Okay, again, we don't have any sway in this, but I would like to entertain a motion that would have the committee, the Budget Committee, support the grant acquisition process and the program outlined by the town manager and
So moved.
rec.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
I'm going home to sleep.
Good luck.
And I brought cookies and candy for everybody tonight, so please help yourselves.
Cookies and candy.
Yep.
Yeah, really.
It's our last night. Chocolate chip, no nuts.
Looking for Steve.
State you buy them.
Don't be, huh?
So Jay, why don't you, we'll do the Public Works General stuff next. If Jay's been up since 5 o'clock working on town stuff, so I want to try to move him along. Ton just mentioned if we're going with the, degree of injury, which Steve Dalton should be there. Exactly. He's been doing so well over the last week that we'll make you sit there and have blood rush to your foot for a little while.
Yeah, encourage people to throw themselves down the stairs.
So Jim Perkins,
Get the hell out of here.
did meet with him.
What page are we on?
This would be page 1. We'll start with the Public Works.
Fuel Island?
Public Works Garage. Fuel Island.
Fuel Island sounds so tropical.
So this is pretty self-explanatory in the write-up. This was deferred by the management team and the subcommittee, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had decided that this should be part of an overall campus review, including the Public Works Garage that has been discussed in the past and that is ongoing on a preliminary design basis. And the subcommittee felt that this should be part of that, not as a separate item. Did you have anything specific to maybe add to discussion? Paul?
We had proposed this because the condition of the fuel island is getting worse. And we have underway right now a study by a consultant to mastermind how the campus would work down there with a new public works facility and the location of the fuel island. And we do not have the draft report on that, but we expect that shortly. So waiting another year to bring this project back. It is a functional fuel island right now, and going to the worst thing that could happen, it could all not work, that means we would have to go and find fueling elsewhere.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I have a question.
Tim?
It has health or safety checked off on here. Are there any safety issues?
I'm hesitating because I'm trying to think of some of the structural reports where the canopy is getting older. I would say right now we are in good condition for another year.
Just past state inspection when we were there.
Okay.
Tom?
Thanks for the info.
I would just make a couple of observations. One is, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to disagree on given that management has recommended deferring it and that the subcommittee also supports that. So I'm not going to pick a fight on that. But we know that in the long run, improvements need to happen on that site, and oftentimes we argue that the way to do that when we have a large project is to do it in phases. When we were talking to Parks and Rec, a few years ago, we talked about that. And when I saw this in the CIP booklet, I was like, well, if you knew exactly where that fuel island needs to be, wouldn't that be a great first phase to getting where we need to be in a handful of years with the DPW facilities? So it's not going to happen this year, but it's not a bad approach, actually, potentially, rather than trying to solve the whole thing in one enchilada. So I'm just sort of putting that out there as a marker for future consideration.
And I think this study that we're underway with right now is going to lay out all options being on the table as far as that goes.
Now, last year, we did approve $50,000 to do a review of the garage and that whole campus area. And again, the question is, do we keep the garage, the fuel island where it is? Again, the subcommittee felt it was all an integrated approach was the way to go. Did you have anything to add to that, Amanda? I apologize for.
No. Perfect time.
Sorry, I saw it happening.
She raised her arm, though.
Any further comments or questions?
Question.
Could you just go over that? You're wanting an integrated approach. So how is the financing for this project versus the whole design of the garage? How does that fitting together?
Well, that is part of the problem, at least from the subcommittee's perspective, and I think management's perspective as well, is that there are still a lot of questions as to what would be our recommended plan. And so to go ahead with one part of it at this point was premature. And so, they had put in $460,000 as a placeholder, so to speak, because we don't have a preliminary design yet. So that's what we used to call a WAG, a wild a guess, and that's where we are right now. And same thing with the garage. A few years ago, they got we even voted down the study for the garage one year because there were just too many up in the air issues. So now we have money in place. We're looking at an overall integrated campus approach, and we should know next year where we are on that.
So we are deferring this project in light of that?
Correct.
Thank you.
Because if you look in previous CIP descriptions, it's for the overall garage and everything else, some of which included the fuel island, some of which didn't. Again, the bottom line is there are just way too many questions at this point to go in any one direction. I think the voters felt that way with the garage a few years ago. There were just still too many questions. So,
When will the study be finished?
Excuse me?
The study, when will that be finished?
The current one?
Yeah.
We should be getting a draft report here within a week or two.
Oh, jeez.
For our consideration, add some comments to it, then go to the final report after that. So I do want to say something about the costs. We do think that the fuel island is a good cost at $460,000 because we had we had Jeff go ahead and price that with some folks. What we don't know is the overall complex cost of a new facility, that sort of thing, part of this study is to put cost to that and what the site work's going to be also. So that'll be forthcoming here shortly also.
Okay. So on behalf of the subcommittee, I will move that we support management's decision in deferring this project until a later year.
Wait, before you do, I have a question. So obviously there's like needs, big needs, and obviously this has to be replaced at some point. And you guys feel it needs to happen now, and I can understand from reading the description. Is the concern that if this were to be replaced now, that the money to do this may not be well spent because it might have to be moved? Is that what I'm hearing? Or I just want to make sure I'm clear. So, yes.
It would be a final, we would not have a final report that gives us an indication of where the fuel island might land in a broader redevelopment of that area.
Okay.
So it's a cart before the horse.
See, right now, if you're familiar with the site, there's the garage, and we have a piece of land behind it that has been discussed for a new garage, but then the question is, does it actually go out there? Are we going to tear down the existing garage, put up a new garage? Are we going to end up with 2 garages? So there's a lot of, again, it's up in the air at this point.
But sticking right to the fuel island concept, we kind of seen some sketches of where it ought to be, and it's going to be very close to its current location. But the report's not out there yet.
Right.
It'll be very close to where it is now.
I was just thinking about the cost of moving it. If you build it and then you have to move it.
We wouldn't do that. This report would be finalized very shortly.
Okay.
And then we would know where to go.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Can I hear a second to my motion, please?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay, ton. So you are voting, or you are not approving the deferment?
Right.
Correct.
Got it.
How many, any 3?
Who else?
Amanda.
So it passes 6-3. Okay. Next item is the Great Bay nitrogen permit, page 17. This was started, I think, what, last year, Russ? Or 2 years ago?
I believe it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So an overall regional permit that all the communities surrounding Great Bay are involved in. A lot of detail in the description, which I won't recap. Originally slated for a little over $100,000, $105,000. Management has recommended a slight reduction to $75,000. Last year we paid for the work being done on this with ARPA funds.
Question?
Sure.
If I may? Russ, why is this even a warrant article? I mean, it's a permit. I mean, I understand the nature of the thing. And is this a recurring permit? I mean, is this a recurring expense?
So it's not in the operating budget. It's slated to be scheduled for the initial spending, FY24 and FY25 are in the CIP. And then after that, it's a to be determined, so we don't have a determined cost.
There's no game plan on what happens after that.
Going forward, Paul might be able to speak to the subsequent years further tonight, but in terms of a warrant article, it's been a standalone program since it was first developed, and so it's there. It may find its way into the operating budget in a subsequent year, but we would have to evaluate that on an annual basis, right?
Okay. All right.
So last year we paid for some scope items out of ARPA funds. So where does that show up, actually? Or is it something that we do as part of our operations, like catch basin cleaning, or what, CSO work, or how?
Yeah, we have a list of activities that you are doing as part of our permit compliance.
And it's tracked as a sort of a separate
Yes.
fund thing?
The ARPA monies are separate from general fund or water or sewer funds.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we had last year, we got assistance with a grant, and it was for helping a fertilizer education program, a healthy lawns program, and it was also to study advanced septic systems. Could there be an incentive plan for that? I think we'll finally hear about that at the December River Advisory Committee meeting, which would start talking about how the town may incentivize installers or people that are going to be installing the septic system to do an advanced system, which will then reduce nitrogen, which will then reduce nitrogen in the soil that it's deposited, and then getting into the water bodies through the groundwater. The costs for the project, well, let me go even a little slower. There are other things that are included in this adaptive management program for the Great Bay. And that is catch basin replacements. There is also some contributions to analyzing what is happening out with Great Bay with the PREP and MAM, Municipal Alliance for Adaptive Management program, in the budget portions that you've already heard about. So this year, the bulk of this money goes to now time to fund how we're going to incentivize people that are going to be installing septic systems. And the difference between a conventional septic system and the advanced system is about $15,000. $75,000, I think, is what what this is down to.
Yes.
Yeah, will equate to about 5 of those if you wanted to offer some sort of assistance to get those septic systems installed, which will benefit the health of Great Bay, which will also help us follow through with what we said we would do in our adaptive management plan. Now, that report is not out. We'll hear about it next month at the River Advisory Committee meeting, the findings of that. So this is a potential expenditure if the town wanted to incentivize installations of these advanced septic systems.
Andrew.
I just want to, not that I think that this isn't a great thing to do for just the water quality in Great Bay in general, but I just don't necessarily like the funding mechanism. It's like sewer and water, ratepayers pay for sewer and water for the things that they use, but then the whole town pays for one person's septic system. I mean, I think it's a good program. I just don't know if it should be coming out of the pockets of everybody in town, personally. So if the $75,000 is strictly for that program, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
So this relates back to the permit and the adaptive management plan that we have to put in place as part of the EPA regulations. And so from that perspective, at least, it's a regulatory activity.
Could we?
And it's general fund.
Couldn't we then just require that in our town ordinances instead, rather than us funding it, just require new septic systems to be these advanced types?
Well, I think what Paul said is if we want to provide assistance, that this could be used for that. If we don't want to provide assistance because there's other things to do, then maybe it's a lesser amount down to zero.
Yes, and that'll be a discussion item coming up too. What could the town could require these, but I think you'd want the backing of the state, and you'd want the backing of the state with proper or adequate systems that would serve the purpose too, because you'll find that there's many different types out there, so some of them would need to be certified and that sort of thing. So, I would caution just going ahead and doing that before due diligence of the state that handles the subsurface.
Yeah. I mean, I could see funding the certification, but not the...
Well, to answer your questions about the sewer part of it, we went through this in 2017, when we were trying to fund the wastewater plant. The only thing that the state and the town is responsible for sewer-wise is that outfall pipe and the nitrogen relating from that. Everything else, agricultural runoff and septic systems, are outside of the sewer service area, so those are the purview of the overall town. So that's why the split.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, Amanda?
So did you say there was other options to satisfy the permit?
What I meant to say, if it sounded that way, was that there are many types of these advanced septic systems, and we would, before we say thou shalt do this, we should get the buy-in of the regulatory agencies of which ones of those are approved for the installations.
And could this, can I ask another question? Could this $75,000 become an incentive not of the full 15 that these would cost? Because you said it would fund 5 of them. Could it just be 5,000 or 1,000 or smaller?
It could be modified, the percentage.
Correct.
Contribution.
Paul, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but the basic concept of the adaptive management plan is to try to reduce some of the nitrogen that's running off and going into the river. If we get readings back that the nitrogen has increased, we are going to have to retrofit our facility to then start treating water, which would be far more expensive. So the plan that Paul and his team have worked on, and please tell me if I'm misspeaking, but is to start to chip away at some of these nitrogen reduction options in hopes of continuously staying under our nitrogen levels so that we don't actually have to put a big capital investment in that. So it may seem little and we're just breaking off little pieces, but it is a goal. The long-term goal is to make sure that our nitrogen levels stay low.
Again, part of the problem is the only hammer that the state and the feds have is that pipe that goes into the river. Yeah. They're not going to go and talk to, Joe and Jane Smith out on Town Farm Road about their septic system. They don't care about them. They care about that pipe going in the river. So to Melissa's point, if the nitrogen levels in the river rise, even if we're doing an amazing job at our treatment plant, which by the way we are, we're, 40% less than what we need to be at this point, with the operators and the technology we have. But even despite all that, if the nitrogen levels goes up, that pipe and the facility thereof is on the hook. Yeah. Because we've found it's very difficult to enforce anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that, the folks who manage this will, if there are 50 people who want relief on their septic system upgrades, then instead of giving $15,000, we'll give, 2 or 3.
And just a quick question on that, which it sounds great, and the fact that it's scalable and that amount can be adjusted. Just if it's Russ or Melissa or somebody could give me just a brief update or an explanation of how that process, like who makes that decision, how is that decided if we do 5% for 20 septic systems, or Paul?
Let's wait for the report to come out because it'll give some suggestions, and it would only be suggestions, and it would be up to us whether we wanted to go in any one direction and stuff. So that is not clear yet.
And in the past, when we've developed programs around certain elements of, not this specifically, but we've dealt with I&I issues and replacement of private services and things like that, we've gone through the select board after designing a program in order to do that with a payback period and so forth. And we've actually done that very successful in the past. So we would look to do, I think, a similar model with something like this.
Cool.
And there might be some location pieces to this. So maybe we decide that it's the septic systems near water sources or runoff, so it may not be universal through the whole town. Maybe we try to pick the systems on the properties that give us the most decrease into where our water sources are. So Paul and his team would be working that out once they have the report.
Thank you.
And
Tom?
Go ahead.
Sure. It's a little different, so.
Okay. Russ, you kind of said it, but that concept on J.D. Hill, I think, with I&I think we're talking about, we're far enough out from that you can say that there was buy-in to that from the neighborhood, and that whatever that financial scheme was successful?
Yeah, very successful. Yeah, we offered a payback period of time that people could sign up for, and they did that and took advantage of that, and it worked out well.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask about, I saw on here another reduction effort for '24 is the fertilizer program. And so that's something that will also be part of this money? Or that's already baked it, like that's already happening?
That's already happening. There was a little bit of money in the original request of 105 that for materials and that sort of thing. But the way that program is getting off slow, I don't think we'll need additional materials for this upcoming year.
Okay.
That was an education program to educate people on their fertilizer, use it, that kind of thing.
Did you have some?
Yeah. I'm just curious, like ballpark numbers, how many houses or lots are on septic and how many are replaced every year?
I can tell you when we developed this, there were 6 the year that we developed this idea, and that we had used 6 at 15,000 for 90,000. That was part of the calculation, and then in an effort to reduce those costs, management says, let's go with 75 instead of 90. So the amount that was replaced or new, the year that this was developed a few years ago, there was only 6.
6 that year that
Yes.
were replaced.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so to recap, the subcommittee did support management's adjustment of this budget to $75,000. And on behalf of the subcommittee, I would move that $75,000 number.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. The ayes have it, 8 to 1.
Isn't it lovely?
That's delightful.
Yeah. Is it-
Next item
Is that a
is
special ringtone for your wife?
pickpocket,
Sweet.
I need to take
Melodic.
pickpocket dam modifications on page 20. This is the sort of a never-ending story. Studied this thing to death ad infinitum, approved some money in the past. My understanding is that we're in the process of designing something. The management team has deferred this request until we can get more of an idea of what exactly it's going to take to remove this dam and what the implications are. Is there anything in particular, or either of you would like to? Paul?
Yeah, this was a brainchild of myself this year. And we are under the full feasibility study of what to do with Pickpocket Dam. And it was like, there's always an issue that crops up that you need to take a look at. So why don't we have a little bit more funds available in case that issue comes up. And then also, if no issues do come up, and the study would be done, the draft study is due this January, let's start having our consultant apply for grants on our behalf, and this is a way to fund their effort as a way to get money for whatever the improvement is going to be. But what has happened here in the recent past, within the last month and a half, there was a grant that came out, and it was a NOAA grant for barrier removal for fish passage, of which it's pretty lucrative this year, and there's a lot of funds in there compared to years past, that they would pay for 100% of an activity that would do that, of which dam removal would be a perfect example of that. Wow. So our consultant, instead of continuing on with the full analysis, looked at what we did know about all the different options and tried to compile where we're at and what we knew about things. Showed that presentation to the River Advisory Committee, and they had voted that our preferred option for fixing the letter of deficiency is dam removal, and to go ahead with the grant. From there, we went to the select board with the same presentation, also with the recommendation from the River Advisory Committee, with the same answer. Yes, that is our preferred alternative, and go apply for the grant. So right now, we have an application in for a dam removal with NOAA for barrier removal for fish passage enhancement. Wow. So this 50,000 it is, in my estimation, not going to be needed now.
Oh, not needed now.
And it's not needed as part of the grant
Not used to hearing that.
It's not needed as part of the grant application.
It's not needed as part of the grant application because we actually had our consultant go ahead and apply for this big.
That's done.
And it's complete. And we're waiting for answers now, but we do have that application in, and if successful, it's 100% of design and construction.
Wow.
That'd be nice.
Question?
Who'd I ask?
Yes.
Let's make that happen.
Is Brentwood involved in that at all?
Well, Brentwood wasn't advised of what we were going to do with the application because
They're on a need-to-know basis.
Because of how it evolved so quickly. And in fact, from the time that we knew that this would be attractive, it took about a week and a half to get in front of the River Advisory Committee, and I think within another week and a half, 2 weeks, it was in front of the select board. So it happened pretty quickly, and we didn't think we'd be ready to even discuss this until at least January, but our consultant pulled some things together that made sense, that highlighted the preferred option of dam removal.
Small clarification, which is Brentwood was notified, but after we went through our grant application
My ringer's
process.
better than yours.
Yeah, so we did send something over to them to review.
Excellent. Any further comments, Tom?
We'll keep it short since it's all such good news, but I take it we funded this study previously, right? So that this grant writing is partly the product of the funding that we've approved in the past? Is that fair? As in last year?
Yeah, I think we might be able to absorb that in there. We'd have to see how the rest of the feasibility report goes because some options fall out. If we have to look at all the options, we might have to come up with a little bit more.
But it's all good. Great.
Last one, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but what if NOAA doesn't approve the grant? So where does that put us if it doesn't happen?
Well, that puts us back now searching for grants that will.
Okay.
Yep.
And right now, we have $185,000 in ARPA funds that we've been using to work on this project through the feasibility study process.
But we're responding to an LOD from what, the state, right?
Yes.
And we can certainly demonstrate that we're making progress. We're making an effort.
That's great.
We're trying to be less deficient.
Yeah. We're working on our deficiencies. Very good.
So, again, on behalf of the subcommittee, we, especially in view of this recent information, I would move that we support management's decision to defer $50,000 for this.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Judy's happy.
I really like it.
Okay.
Might make a private newsletter.
They're watching tonight, I'm sure.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit. If we go to, this is more just for clarification, because we did receive 100% grant. On page 27 is the Water Street reconstruction. And I think, well, I know when I went through this, and I compared it to last year's CIP, I noticed this little project planning thing in there for $100,000, wondering what that was all about, and then as the summer wore on, found that we received a grant. I think, Melissa, you have the information on this, or not?
Nope.
Or who's the
You have to
lead?
hold it.
But Paul.
Sorry.
She's doing the dance. She's got to.
So you want to just let us know in general?
Sure. So you're familiar with seeing street projects where we're replacing utilities, water, sewer, drainage if required, redoing the road, maybe some sidewalks, maybe some curb, maybe some BMPs, that sort of thing. So we're trying to group streets to get utility improvements together so that we hit a street and we do it fairly complete. Water Street is one that is on our radar for a future year. And with that, we were able to apply for a stormwater planning grant. That might not be the exact name, but that's what it used to be called. For $100,000 that helps with the planning of that project. We've got to really look at stormwater here, but we can also look at, because we're going to be replacing stormwater utilities, location of other utilities that we can, will be replacing too, so that everybody could live happily in the street between the utilities. So it's a good tool. It will be 100% principal forgiveness.
And I just add that this has to be a warrant article because it is a loan agreement, and so technically it has to go on the warrant to be approved, but like Paul was saying, it's 100% loan forgiveness, so there'll be no cost.
And that will be articulated in the warrant article?
In the warrant article, yes.
Bold,
Absolutely.
hopefully.
Tom's great.
You can't argue against a proposal that's 100% covered, so I'm not arguing against it. But does it lock us into a construction schedule? And in light of the price of that, any future construction and all the other projects we've got going on, is there a shelf life to this thing?
This task right here does not commit you to be doing the other ones, but in our layout of the CIP, you'll see it for, I think, FY26 for the actual construction of this. If it's methodical of 1 year, and you do this street, the next street, the next street, that sort of thing. So that's why you'll see it with the FY26 construction.
It fits into your schedule of
in
$6
my
million?
planning schedule.
Speak loosely, but you know, we're talking about $6-7 million projects in various different neighborhoods, and we know that there are 2 in the pipeline that haven't, the shovels aren't even in the ground yet.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And this would be then the follow-on to that. So, but that fits your schedule, okay?
Yes, this would be after the School Street project.
Right. And we haven't, and the one before that, obviously.
Yeah, and that's the West
Side Drive, yeah.
Also.
Okay.
Okay. So on behalf of the subcommittee, we supported this and the planning phase to get things going, and I would entertain a second for that motion to support current efforts in the planning phase.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll go one up. We'll talk about, I'm leaving School Street for last because that does have some water and sewer implications. So page 23, the sidewalk capital recovery fund, reserve fund, I mean. So historically, we put generally, $100,000 to $200,000 into our sidewalk fund. As has been discussed and was discussed at the DPW meeting a few weeks ago, the cost of sidewalks has gone up precipitously. And in some cases, we're able to get them put in as part of our paving work or specific projects, but not always. So the request from the department was $200,000. Management has deferred this with the caveat that if the Planet Playground project if we don't get that grant, as discussed a few minutes ago, that this, the efforts and the money that would have gone into that will return this to a full funding of $200,000. There is approximately $148,000. Is that still the number of $148,000 in this fund?
There's a little bit more than that available currently. There's
Okay.
148,000 or 147,856 in the Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund. I do want to just note that there's $84,382 of other available funds, so the total is $232 that we have access to at the moment.
Okay.
What is other available funds?
These are Lincoln Street funds that were not used, $32,000, and Linden Street funds that were not used as well, $49,000.
So construction bond funds from those projects?
Not for Linden Street, but for the Lincoln Street Phase 2.
So those can be swept into a sidewalk fund?
Yes.
Okay, and may I ask why the fund wasn't expended this year? Because it's so little, how come it didn't get used up?
Just haven't had time to do it. We're doing some with the paving program.
Yeah.
We're doing some as part of that paving program, but we haven't done any specific ones for this, out of this money. But we've done quite a few this year as part of our paving program, and we're actually working on some this week. And Marshall Farms and Heritage and Colonial Way, replacing the sidewalks as we pave it.
So the subcommittee talked about this and thought that we should hedge our bets a little bit, and that was before, well, at least from my perspective, that I heard about the $82,000, which would bring potential funds up over $230,000. The subcommittee had recommended possibly recommending $50,000 to be put in. At the time, it was that on top of the $148,000 would be around the $200,000. So I don't know if either of you want to weigh in. I haven't really digested whether we want to change that approach with the $82,000 or not.
I have a question. Jay, do you think out of that possibly 140 that's left right now, will that get expended or some of that be expended for the end of the year?
I don't believe so, no.
No, so you think that's going to be still in there? Okay, so we really have 140 going into next year.
Plus 82.
Definitely 82? Are we definitely putting it in there?
Well,
84.
Or 84, it's available.
Well, it's available.
There's nothing else to be using it for at this point.
Oh, I'm sure we can find something.
Well, but the projects are done, and this, because we were deferring the $200,000, this was a weak spot, potentially, in the public works effort to improve streets and sidewalks.
So just, this is gonna tie two together here so that we have clarity in case anybody has questions about how things are gonna get expended going forward. So in the past week, Jay and I have been talking with regard to the ADA CIP item about doing some curb cuts and, the little, what are they called? The little...
ADU ramps.
Yeah, but
dots.
The little metal
Truncated
castated thing. Yes, truncated domes is what they're called.
Ah, yes.
Yes,
Of course.
At a couple of places that don't have curb cuts currently at all. So there are some sidewalks in town that that just have a straight curb going across them. And those two places that we identified are going to total up to $50,000, which is going to be the ask for the ADA fund. But since it is sidewalk related, I thought I'd bring it up now so we don't vote on this and then go to the ADA one and say, oh, we should have talked about that in sidewalks.
And that's why I said what I said. And that's why I said what I said, because there's money in it being going somewhere else. And not that I'm against, the curb cuts, all for it, but that $84,000 I could see getting pushed somewhere else and not to repairing, rebuilding sidewalks. I guarantee you, my neighborhood, they'll string me up if I vote against putting money into the sidewalk fund.
Yeah, we all know
and
there's
I'll
a lot
string
of
me up.
sidewalks in town that need to be done. The ends of the sidewalks are where the ADA piece, I think.
If we don't put money in.
It's kind of the thought process is the edge is the ADA piece, if that's missing, and the interior is maybe, or the whole sidewalk is maybe a sidewalk fund issue, but before we get too far and then get confused.
And just to refresh, I know you probably have this number, but I know we talked about in the subcommittee about the sort of the dollars per foot or per 100 or 1,000 feet or something. It's some god-awful amount of the amount of money we had to spend, I think, on Linden Street to put in the sidewalk. I know, Andrew, you had that number. But
It's here in the page.
It is, okay.
Yep.
My glasses have been
296
fine-tuned down
to
to...
the 1 mile with curving.
Okay.
Say it again, Amanda?
296,000
Linden Street.
was for Linden Street's 1 mile with new curving.
There you go.
296.
Close to 300,000.
For a mile.
For a mile that needs new granite curving, so a mile that didn't need it would be somewhat less.
And we have 32 miles of sidewalk in town.
30.
And more needed.
As they say, do the math. Andrew?
Right, so just as sort of an avid walker, I'm always on the street walking, and I like to see this in our warrant article every year, because last year it wasn't there, and if the town gets used to not seeing sidewalks in our warrant articles, they're going to ask, it's going to be more likely that they'll vote it down when we put it back on next year, for example. So I'd like to have some monies in there. I mean, I'd rather even have potentially more than the 50,000, only because there's never-ending projects with sidewalks. You've got West Side Drive coming up, you've got School Street, you've got the one right after that. They all have sidewalks, and I think they all deserve good sidewalks. And that's just a matter of how we write our warrants,
We're also going to be, the rec department is going to be on 10
They want
Hampton Road.
sidewalks. Yep. You can pull it from that fund.
Just a quick point, for those major capital projects, we typically do the sidewalks out of the bond issue.
Exactly.
So
That's right.
that would fund those pieces that were referred to.
That's true.
I'm not arguing against sidewalk money. I think it's money well spent, and certainly it's discretionary spending. I mean, we know that.
So again, the subcommittee's thought was that if we added 50 to the current balance, that'd get us close to 200. Obviously, the 84 on top of that is a wild card at Public Works and Management's discretion, but there are additional funds available. And then if the Planet Playground thing doesn't happen, presumably that line would be recommended at deliberative session to be the 200 that was originally requested. So the subcommittee was hoping to hedge our bets, in case the Planet Playground thing came through, and so this wasn't funded. We wanted, I think as people said, like to have something in there for sidewalks, and there are funds available now, so this would supplement it. Understanding that it's maybe a tough year to fully fund the 200,000 with the other requests.
I'll make a motion for 50,000 for the sidewalk fund.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I hate this job. This is so hard.
This is what it's all about.
We're only advisory.
All
that's right, I'm not getting
all
paid.
those in favor of recommending $50,000 for this, to be added to this fund for FY24, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I ask a clarifying question, Bob?
Sure.
So if Playground fell through and the 200 that was contemplated went to sidewalks, would it be 250 or would you be just looking to make the 200,000 whole?
I mean, the way I would look at it is that our recommendation as a recommending committee to the select board would be 50,000. And then if Planet Playground didn't go through, my feeling is that the board would supersede that and put in, well, whatever they want, but maybe 200,000. But I don't think it would be additive.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if we need a consensus on that, but that's
I'm not even sure what you said.
That's my.
Would it be put in 200 or get it to 200?
Purview of the select board, I would say.
I think the request is for 200, and the select board is committed to making it 200 if Planet Playground doesn't go through. 200 is better than 50, so I think most places that would take precedence. We are recommending, based on what we've heard here tonight, to put in at least 50.
Right.
So, I mean, Jay, if you want, we can talk about School Street as part of water and sewer. If you need to take off, I think Paul is going to, if you want to stay, or however you want to do it. Okay. Well, why don't we start with that, and then the rest of it after that would be strictly water and sewer, and then get into police and fire and other general government. So, School Street design and construction, page 22. This is a small neighborhood between Lincoln Street and Front Street and the railroad tracks. The concern articulated in both the Public Works and Water and Sewer narratives by the subcommittees were that this would be our third, $6 million project, utility project in the last 4 years. Which gave us some pause until two things happened. One is the sewer department informed us in our meetings that literally after every rainstorm, their Vector truck is called by residents to go out and unplug the School Street sewer because it's in very, very poor shape. If anybody who's walked out in that area, it's a very flat, very poorly drained neighborhood. So in addition to people having to live under those conditions, the town has received notice from Department of Environmental Services that we are in line for a 35% principal forgiveness grant on the sewer portion of the construction, which equates to about $750,000. It'd be nice if it was more. Obviously, there's drainage work, water, and sewer work. All are around the 200 or around the 2 million range for each of those entities. But $750,000 is a lot of money. We don't know if we're going to be getting that money next year. Obviously, post-COVID, there's less and less federal monies available every year. So it would be a risk if we deferred this. The original feeling was that we wanted to create some separation with current projects on the books, but $750,000 and residents having dire health and safety issues every time it rains is, I think, sort of swung the subcommittees in a different direction. Jim?
So I used to live on School Street, so I'm hugely in favor of this project.
I was just going to say it'd be nice.
You see some of those drainage issues and sewage issues?
Yeah, and the sidewalk issues, but I don't even think those were covered in the sidewalk.
I actually had a question about.
They are covered in the full project.
Okay.
Sidewalks are.
That was going to be my question, right? So the streetscape in some way, I won't even say sidewalks, will be improved by this project.
Yes.
It's a neighborhood that certainly deserves some improvements. Go ahead.
There's a public school on it.
Bob,
It's Paul.
I want to clarify one of the numbers that you're putting out there.
Okay.
The sewer portion for the project through design and construction is $2,614,050. And the 35% forgiveness of that amount will equate to just under $915,000.
Even more reason.
Okay, because I just took the actual sewer construction, so the grant is for everything associated with it?
Well,
So it's design, construction, and conserve?
What happened, they will do the design portion of this also for the sewer.
Okay. There you go.
There are some slight numbers from the original write-up and negotiating with or answering questions at the DES level as this SRF was moving through the system, so there's slight little numbers there, but the principal forgiveness would be $914,918.
Wonderful.
So if you equate that throughout the whole project, that's, roughly 14 or 15% of the project we're getting a grant on. The overall, including design, the drainage and roads and water.
And the other thing we talked about as a subcommittee was that if we don't do it this year, the cost will be more the next year.
Right.
So if you add that plus the loss of the 35%.
Yeah, the only, if there is a negative to this, it's that sometimes we vote in the design and then we schedule the construction, how it lines up with other CIP items. In this case, because there is the sewer principal forgiveness, that we would have to vote on the whole $6.5 million. But given the stakes, again, the subcommittee thought that it was worth taking that plunge.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, which is probably warrants it should be a relatively easy sales pitch, but to the voters, but nonetheless, it's going to require a sales pitch to the voters, given that we're doing the whole thing all at once.
Understood, definitely.
And again, keeping in mind that out of the $6.5 million, water and sewer is over 4 of that. So from a general fund and a taxation perspective, only about a third, a little less than a third is the general fund. That's the hard part, though.
So, Bob.
Judy.
I haven't been involved in any of this, so to see if I understand this. The total project is $6,510,000, and there's a $750,000 grant that has been applied for.
It's actually $915.
Now it's not that, so it's not
because it was
a second
applied
grant.
to everything associated with the sewer project,
So
not
it's
just construction.
$914,000.
And it's approved.
Oh,
And
the
that
grant
is approved. It's not like a grant, we are in line for that. Melissa made that abundantly clear to me.
Are you listening to me?
And I listened for once.
We were awarded, that's Paul and his team, so.
So when you do a warrant for that, do you state that in the warrant too?
We would state it in the warrant, yes.
Right?
Yes.
As opposed to the other one where we go contingent on grant, this one has a guaranteed grant, something along those lines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bob, I just want to illuminate something or clarify something that you said, just to be clear, because about $4 million of that is water and sewer. That'll fall on water and sewer ratepayers, not. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, and so, yes, the water and sewer portions would be, water users and sewer users. So it would be split up as far as payment goes, whatever is related to roads and drainage would be paid for by general fund, or, general taxation, and the rest of it by water.
But to be clear, that the CIP item is the whole enchilada?
Correct.
Okay.
And if I may.
Enchilada.
And so Russ then, and Corey, as a sewer ratepayer, the $950K would be applied to the sewer fund, then I would hope, yes?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So what we would do is.
Or you'd figure out what portion that is, and you would.
Essentially
the self-interested water and sewer ratepayer.
Right. The loan amounts that we would end up borrowing would be the difference between the forgiveness that we're getting back.
Yeah.
We'd actually we'd borrow the full amount, but we get 35% forgiveness off of that borrowing. So it would mean that essentially you're getting a 35% grant on the borrowed amount for the sewer portion of the project.
Okay. And there's an accountant, you know what I'm trying to ask, right? Accounting wise,
Short answer,
the sewer ratepayers will get a break on that.
Correct.
As opposed to the
right.
general fund taxpayers.
That's right.
Okay, that's where I was going.
We got you covered, buddy.
Yeah.
No, I think it's an important point, because, that's.
I mean, it's a follow-on to your question.
Absolutely, yeah. You're going right down the hole I was going to start digging.
Yeah.
So.
And is this loan forgiveness award a one-time thing, or might we be in line for future
It goes with the project, so it would go with this project specifically, but it doesn't preclude us from applying for other grant forgiveness.
There's always other grants available. This just happens to be available at this time for this project. And as it was described to me, it might not be available next year or in subsequent years, or a lesser amount. I think, Melissa, you had said that sometimes it's more along the 15%.
Right.
In a lot of cases. So this is, again, it was sort of too much of a forgiveness to really dismiss. But there's no guarantees that it'll be in future years. There's a probability that it will be, but it probably won't be 35%, I guess is really what it comes down to.
We wouldn't want to be in a position to reapply.
Exactly.
For the funding if we turned it down.
The projects
do
get
it.
ranked every year. So when they see us turn down a project, we can lose our ranking. But also not only that, but the funding pot of money, like Bob said, we're seeing a lot of increased funding sources through ARPA and COVID and that kind of stuff. And they're expecting that to start to diminish.
Well, you're further out here.
So obviously this was slightly different than we talked about in our subcommittee. Are you guys okay with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep the wheels moving.
All right.
Yeah.
So on behalf of both Public Works subcommittees, I will move to accept the School Street Area Reconstruction Project as presented.
Wholeheartedly seconded.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Why don't we get into the police and fire items here?
Thank you, Jay.
I'll sort of go back to
sleep well.
Head of the class. Thank you, Jay, for joining. And Paul, hopefully you'll hang around because we do have a few other things on water and sewer. So we'll go to number 3 on our list. Actually, why don't we do a couple of the other the smaller police and fire first, and then get into the public safety complex. So let's.
Could I suggest the ADA, since we've been talking about ADA stuff with these other departments? Unless you want to save it, I'm fine.
Well, it's fresh in our minds. Okay, well, while the chiefs are mobilizing, let's talk about on page 7, ADA improvements, really quickly.
Can't say mobilizing.
No, that's great.
Yes, thank you.
So this is a capital reserve fund. We allocated $25,000 last year.
Which one?
If my numbers are current, we spent 13. There's still 12 in the fund, I think.
There is, currently there's 14,000 available.
14. There must have been a little left over. This is page 7, CIP. We do have a list of various ADA projects, again, some of which we have done this year. The request was for $50,000 to continue funding the fund, and management has suggested a revision to $25,000. And I will entertain discussions on
Yeah, I can
this
speak to
item.
this, if
Amanda.
that's okay. So the first project has been approved by select board and is underway, and things are ordered and being installed shortly. I think that there might be a few things that we need to do after that's put in. I just like this issue, by the way. So when I say I and we, it's because I care a lot about it, and I talked to Doug Eastman a lot, who's our ADA coordinator, and even Dave and Russ and everybody in town about this issue all the time, and just spend my time volunteering to work on it. So that's why I know about it. It's just near and dear to my heart. So that project is underway. There might be a couple of things that might not have been included in the initial ask about like signage, because I know a lot of the downtown businesses are really excited for the universal changing station that's been approved but signage like from Swayze and from downtown pointing to where it is and getting the word out that we have this in town would be a little piece, as well as the ramp leading up to the exterior of the town hall where the bathroom is that's being put into, might not have railings on both sides, or there might be like a small piece that needs to be looked at with that. I need to talk to Doug again about it. So there might be a little bit of additional pieces that come into that, I'm not sure. The next project that Doug and we talked to Jay about, which Jay is gone, and just got final plans for this week is, as I was mentioning, 2 areas of town that don't have curb cuts in the sidewalks. So that's by the library and by Stewart Park. So Jay was able to put together some costs for both of those projects. And they come out to a total of about $52,000. And so those are the first 2 pieces from the DAC track list, which is the ADA study that was completed in 2019. It's about 32 spreadsheets of projects identified for the town of things to do. I have all the spreadsheets if anybody wants to look at them. They're very detailed, they're great. We got our bang for our buck on that study. And it came in with all these pictures, and it's really, really good. So working down the list on that, Doug and I sit there and help him with it a little bit, identifying which projects to knock off, which are the biggest things, the most important things, and just working down the list. So I would very much support keeping that at $50,000. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think that's what I can say.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Anna,
sorry.
Let's start
Yeah, please.
with the chain of command. Anna, as chair of the subcommittee on this.
Well, I appreciate the work you've done, Amanda. Thank you.
Amazing.
I've had less time to reach out to Doug and work through the DAC track list, which Dave shared with me, but I haven't had time to dig deep. But I had sought it out because in other conversations, we've talked about this list of ADA improvements, and this list does exist. And it's a long list, and it's a long set of projects. And every time it came up in our committee meetings and in other discussions, when we ask why this has been underspent, for instance, the answer is never that we don't have the projects to do. It's always we're understaffed with other departments that need to actually implement the work, or it's attached to a larger capital improvement or different street project, for instance, that's also in the works. So, and as we've seen even tonight, it came up in Parks and Rec, it's come up in other facilities and other departments. So it's a fund that's a little more complicated because of how much it's spread out throughout the different departments. So I initially was leaning towards supporting the cut, but after just dipping my toe into that list, I am in complete agreement with you. I'd like to keep it at my recommendation at the 50,000. But with also the appreciation and acknowledgement that it is underspent and we are understaffed in other areas. So I do understand that spending it and actually getting these projects rolling to the capacity of what this fund can accomplish has other challenges.
Chris? Thank you, Anna.
Concur 100% on everything that Anna just said. I think one of the things that is worth illuminating, though, is that we're talking about a $50,000 funding of this that was looking to get cut. It cost $52,000 to put in 2 curb cuts and ramps, right?
Yeah. Well, it's 4, but
or 4,
yeah.
Right? But I mean, so that's 1 or 2 projects, depending on how you count it. If you want to count it as 4 projects, 4 ramps. But you can see that these funds don't go very far. No. And if I were to clarify what you said, the report is 32 pages of items, so we have a long way to go, and I'm sure they're not all $50,000 items. There's some smaller ones as well, but I'm sure there's bigger ones as well.
I just want to illuminate or share the perspective that this is in the General Government Committee because accessibility is not limited to the very visible hindrances like ramps or a sign or an elevator. There are other elements to accessibility that are, the audiovisual support for this meeting, for instance. There are other aspects to it, which is why it's housed here, but it's feeding these other areas.
So it sounds like, did you have?
No, I just.
It sounds like, so Doug is the ADA coordinator, and Jay would be the guy who sort of facilitates the actual construction, and Dave has sort of the overall view of ADA, So how is this bus being driven so that we can sort of ensure that there's 32 pages of work is actually getting done? I know you're very skilled with some tools, but I don't think you're going to be building all of these things. So I guess that's really what it comes down to. It wasn't necessarily the level of funding, is do we have the ability to do these projects?
Yeah, so Jay felt confident that he could subcontract these two together, that it was big enough to get, as long as they were wrapped together, to get someone to bid on it and put these in.
And do you think that'd be done this year?
I don't think it'd be done before December. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that is what I mean.
No, and there's not enough money left over.
Okay.
So that can't be done until, the fund has to kind of get
replenished.
replenished.
Got it.
In order to work on that.
And so if we have 14 in the fund and we're adding, let's say 50, then we would just do more projects if we had the money available.
We would start with this larger spend, and then we'd have money to work on some of the smaller pieces as well, and keep working through the list.
Got it. Tom?
Thank you.
And that's assuming select board approves it, et cetera, et cetera. This is just the planning stage. It has to go to select board to be approved.
I'm not educated on this topic at all, but I'm strongly in support of us as a town and as a budget recommendation committee with pushing this issue forward. So I think a strong message should be made. So I'm totally in support of that. My only comment is that, and it's good that we're talking about this in the context of the sidewalks, but I suspect that this ADA list has a lot of non-sidewalk issues in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I would hate to see all the money in this fund expended on, let's say, just sidewalk issues, when maybe there are non-sidewalk issues that are just as important, and that we use the sidewalk fund to do the ADA related things that involve the sidewalk. That's from what I'm absorbing tonight.
Great. Excellent comment.
If I could just add, that was going to be my ask, 25,000, 50,000, regardless of the amount. I personally would like to see more strategic planning articulated to us, to the budget committee, on how this list is prioritized and what the timeline is. We don't need to micromanage it, but I just want a little more transparency it's not transparent because we have the report, but just maybe an overall plan.
So at press time, when the budget narrative was developed, we didn't have this specific plan in place to do these projects. So that is just a point I want to raise. This is something that's come along in the interim.
Oh, I thought we were talking about a study that was completed in 2019.
Oh, the study was done in 2019, but as far as an implementation plan and projects and so forth.
Okay. Because I was going to react to the 2019
specific spending initiatives.
It is, the specifics.
We presented a budget of $25,000 based upon historical spend and looking at what's come out of the fund and what we felt was a compromise, like a lot of things in this budget. So,
and an excellent job it was. Okay. Anyone want to make a motion one way or the other?
I'll make a motion for 50,000.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to support the original request of $50,000 in the Capital Reserve Fund for ADA improvements. Further discussion? Andrew?
Just, Russ, are you still recommending 25 now, or is 50 now that you've got an implementation plan more in line?
no, I'd be comfortable with the 50. this
That's
point.
what you're
thank you.
recommending now? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to know.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Good discussion.
Good discussion.
Thanks for.
Okay, you want to go through the little ones first and then the presentation, or, one of them, should be pretty easy. So let's, do the dispatch console, page 11.
So the dispatch console was chatted about at the last select board, just to bring everybody up to speed. I have some rough numbers. The initial quote came in at $281,000. The vendor, through Motorola Solutions, recommended we raise that up to a little over $300,000. Our quote came in at $296 and change, so it's under $300. And without stealing the thunder of the select board, at their last meeting, they decided to use $150,000 plus any interest earned that was given the town by the Riverwoods Corporation for public safety. And we agreed, because the dispatch console supports both fire, police, and EMS, that it was a prudent use of the EMS revolving fund that is robust enough to absorb the other half. So right now, it looks like about 146 and change will come out of the EMS revolving fund. So this would be a no tax item, and my opinion is it doesn't need to go on the warrant, because it will be ordered. It has been ordered. It has been ordered today.
This would not go on the warrant.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Paid for by existing funds.
I apologize if that's all you needed.
Yeah, you could have started with that, yeah.
Yeah.
Found money.
Also, just in case anybody asks, because they asked every roads, but it will move to, if a new police station is approved, this will actually move to the new one. So it is mobile enough to, wherever the police, fire, and EMS are located, this console is going.
Fair enough.
Excellent.
PS5. But.
So I would entertain a motion to support the use of in-house funds and various proceeds to proceed with this project.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And the communication repeater on page 12.
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that previous conversations with, you talked about the management team or whatever, that these projects were considered deferred in a year of some extraordinary expenses. So we do have a project out there of $93,000 for the, hesitate to call it the final leg, because it may not be, but the third leg of our repeater system that was planned well over 10 years ago. This would be in the crossroad area, whether it's on the water tower or freestanding tower, but we are in agreement to defer that for another year, and then we can revisit that issue later.
Excellent, thank you, Eric. Any discussion on that internal decision? Okay. When we talk about the public safety complex, number 3 on our sheet, page 3 in the CIP book. And Judy, I will let you, as chair of the subcommittee, decide how short or how long you want this to proceed.
Dave Sharples is also here to present mostly about the Court Street side. This committee has had materials given to you, a couple of handouts of multi-pages on the need for the new police station, fire substation. I'm changing the whole list. And
Just so you know, Judy, Bob has left the room and I'm now in charge. Anything wants to change, now is your time, pull it up there.
the plan for the substation, the police station and fire substation is the same as the one presented last year. That plan was thoroughly gone over by the chiefs and Dave Sharples to eliminate any features not needed in the Exeter facility. The price has increased, you'll see, mainly due to inflation, about 5%. That's how that figure was arrived at. The materials you've already received draw attention to the growth of the town's population, the increase in the number of employees in the East Department, and the development in the town, including Epping Road corridor, the new high school, and Riverwoods. None of these existed in 1978. We went over the last time we talked about this, the problems with the police department, the inadequate workplace, it's overcrowded, workstations in the hallway, no space for confidential interviews, no training and meeting space, not enough space for equipment to be stored, charged, cleaned, booking room is cramped with necessary technology, inadequate toilet facilities, no public restroom. Liability issues are multiple. Evidence room is maxed out, records stored in cells, unsecured storage shed. There's no victim or witness privacy. The IT server for all of the town's computer services and equipment lacks fire suppression, and the roof leaks. Parking lot is not secured. The passage of prisoners through the spaces cramped with workstations, tools, and gun cleaning. That's not safe. The lobby is not secured, nor is it ADA compliant. From the fire department's point of view, they too have an overcrowded, cramped workspace, and the major problem that will be solved for the fire department will be the slow response time to areas northwest of the railroad tracks, including the high school. In summary, there won't be any new fire department or police department staff required. The new building will be energy efficient, net zero ready. The new building will solve all of the problems just outlined, including needs for space, safety, and security, and no major renovations to the current building to accommodate the fire department. And I handed out the executive summary of the Public Safety Complex Facility Condition Assessment conducted by an outside consultant, which found the Court Street building to be structurally sound, well-maintained, no major projects needed. And we have a mechanism for doing the smaller projects that may be needed from time to time. It's our own public works maintenance projects, line 55177, that can be utilized along with in-house labor at no additional charge. And I think Dave has a much larger story to tell about all of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for, this is a large ask. It's the biggest ask on the CIP and the warrant article. It's a very important project for the town, so just indulge me. We have just a few minutes to go over some things. I'd like to just recap the background of how we got here briefly. And then look at then there's a video that was done by the chiefs and the chair of the select board that we'd like to play. And then I just wanted to answer the question, because I've heard from several people about what are you going to do with 20 Court Street, what's happening to that facility, and I did a little bit of analysis on that, and the benefit of that is that analysis, when you see it, it'll highlight all the benefits of a new police station and fire substation. So it will take a look at what's being done at 20, what's being solved at 20 Court Street and highlight the benefits of this project. So briefly, just, how did we get here? I mean, this started back in 2001, the Fire Infrastructure Study Report, and it recommended a second station to provide better coverage to the residential area north of 101 and still provide coverage to the Epping Road corridor. And even at that time, Epping Road was a lot less built out than it is today. Then it followed up with an organizational effective and efficiency study in 2007. Also recommended to acquire land in the Epping Road area to enable the town to construct a second fire station in the future. Fast forward a few more years, in June of 2010, the town purchased 6 Continental Drive for future public safety use. So we acquired that land for public safety use. In 2018, the town adopted the master plan that asked to resolve outstanding issues with the public safety department facilities, and based on the findings, move with top priority recommendations. Then we did a CPSM, did a fire staffing and deployment analysis in December of 2020. They focused mostly on staffing and deployment, and they also recommended a 2 fire station configuration to improve response times and for the public safety of the community. So is Bob ready to?
I'm ready, sorry.
You're ready? All right. Yeah, we're going to move right along here.
Nobody here.
Hi, I'm Michael
So weird, we're invisible.
the Exeter Select Board. The town of Exeter has grown dramatically, particularly in the last 3 decades. We have seen development explode with the construction of facilities such as Riverwoods and Sterling Hill, as well as new housing developments along Kingston Road, Ray Farm, the residences at Colquhoun Pond, Woodrich Lane, Rennie Lane, and many, many others. Additionally, Exeter Hospital has expanded 3 times in that time period, and PEA continues to improve and expand its facilities annually. In the last 10 years alone, the town of Exeter has seen nearly 1 million square feet of new construction, much of that in the Epping Road, Continental Drive, and Industrial Drive areas. In addition, the high school is now located on the outskirts of town, and as new growth occurs, it increases our public safety needs. The town of Exeter has grown from a population of approximately 11,000 people in 1979 to around 16,000 presently in 2023. As the town expands, expectations of local government has changed, including public safety. Modern-day police and fire departments are expected to respond quickly, provide best-in-class care, and serve the community to be the best of their ability by supporting a safe environment for all to live and play. In 1979, Exeter built the current public safety building on Court Street, which houses both the police and fire departments, respectively. Much has evolved in public safety since then, and after 40 years of successful service, the departments have now outgrown their current spaces.
The town started to explore how to deal with this issue by approving $50,000 for fire and police staffing and deployment analysis. And again, voters approved an additional $100,000 for the purpose of studying alternatives for a new public safety complex.
This video will explain the limitations of the current facility, the process for the proposal, how the project meets the needs of police and fire now and in the future, and the financial impacts on residents.
As a first step in the process, we worked with the Center for Public Safety Management to review the program needs for both the fire and police departments. This process yielded a report that highlighted deficiencies in the current public safety building, and it called out the need for future building or buildings if built. In 2021, the town hired LaValle Brenzinger Architects, or LBA, to review the options to meet the deficiencies of the current public safety building on Court, and evaluate options for alternative locations, and finally recommend the best and most efficient opportunity to move forward. LBA and town staff reviewed the alternatives, such as various locations, various levels of rehab, or demolishing the current building. The final recommendation was to utilize town-owned land at 6 Continental Drive that had been purchased to support their public safety facility.
Once it became clear that a new police station was the path forward, a design and layout was created by LBA. Town staff reviewed the proposal, and due to the significant anticipated costs, proceeded to cut over $1 million worth of square footage from the plan. This was before presenting it to the community. The proposal is efficient while still meeting the current and future needs of our public safety departments. At the March 2023 town election, a warrant article of $16.3 million for constructing a police department with a fire substation went to the voters. A majority of voters voted for the project. However, a supermajority of 3/5 was needed, and the project missed by 45 votes. This year, we are again presenting the project as town staff and committees believe this project is essential for the town moving forward.
Policing has changed dramatically in the last 40 years, but the building is not. The police and fire departments have utilized every square inch possible in our current building. Our number one concern is safety, and the safety of the public, the safety of our staff, and the safety of those in our custody. A floor plan which forces us to escort detainees processing through the staff workplaces and maintenance areas, including a gun cleaning bench. Officers must move staff out of the room before walking through. This condition is unsafe and disruptive to the staff as well as workflow. The building's parking lot is unsecure, allowing public access to fleet vehicles and staff. Recently, a patrol officer was confronted in the parking lot by someone he had given a ticket to earlier in the day.
Wow.
Dispatchers must leave the dispatch center to greet visitors in the lobby after hours, creating a lapse in response time for answering the phone or the radio. Our current evidence storage rooms are at capacity, forcing us to use additional spaces such as old juvenile cells for firearms and drugs evidence storage. Cold case file storage cannot be accommodated on site and must be stored off-site in a shed that is not secure from the elements, pests, or adequately fortified. Workspace for officers and dispatchers is significantly limited. Through the years, the building has been retrofitted to meet the demands of current-day policing. Hallways and closets have been renovated into workspaces, a break room, and kitchenette. The department also lacks a private interview room where officers can talk with victims or witnesses, and supervisors can work with subordinates, or residents can even engage with the police. Currently, no space is large enough to hold proper roll call for more than 3 officers at a time. The department has gone from 1 detective in 1979 to a current staff of 5. The detectives sit in an open concept area that does not provide privacy for intimate casework and follow-ups. The layout affects victim and witness privacy as well as case integrity. Men and women's locker rooms are over capacity. Today, officers must be outfitted with bulletproof vests, radios, tasers, and body-worn cameras, all of which barely fit into the limited locker space available. A few of these items also need to be charged, which causes additional space issues.
Building a fire substation would serve 2 functions of the fire department: improving response times and addressing space limitations for staff and equipment. Right now, it takes approximately 11 minutes to reach Exeter High School and points north and west of downtown when a call for service comes into dispatch. Nationally, a 4-minute response time from the station to the scene is a standard best practice. Currently, only 78% of our calls meet the 4-minute standard. However, the high school and points north and west can take significantly longer. This distance poses a danger for any potential incident at the high school. With a substation, we can meet the 4-minute response time 95% of the time. Railroad tracks, downtown congestion, and school zones contribute to longer response times. In a critical incident, every second counts. And while we pride ourselves on our overall quick response times, we aren't able to meet the national standard when it comes to the northern part of town. Having a permanent presence on Epping Road would ensure that if an emergency happens at the high school, north and west of town, or along 101, we can deploy personnel and assets without delay. Much like the police department, we've outgrown our current space. When the building opened in 1979, our call volume was 762 calls annually. In 2022, we responded to approximately 3,914 calls. Of those calls, 60% were for EMS services for our residents. Equipment requirements for fire and EMS have significantly changed since 1979. Engine and ladder trucks are much larger, staff must wear more life-saving equipment, and must also have access to decontamination areas to protect themselves from harmful contaminants from fighting fires. EMS requires constant training and a review of supplies and testing of equipment. Since our firefighter EMTs work a 24-hour shift, the employee needs space to complete necessary reports, attend training, and kitchen space for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, dormitories, and shower facilities. When built, the department staffed 4 firefighters per shift, and now we house 7. We also have seen an increase in women entering the fire service, which requires appropriate facilities. Like the police, the fire department has utilized every square inch of possible space in the current building, such as old closets and former storage areas, retrofitted in an attempt to meet the department's needs. Moving the police staff to another building and constructing a substation attached to a new police station would alleviate the space restrictions of our current facility on Court Street and improve response times to multiple parts of town.
1 in 5 calls for fire and EMS services come from the Epping Road corridor or areas north of Route 101. Response time for those calls will be greatly reduced with the new facility. No new staff or equipment is needed to staff the new facility. Our current staff will be split between the two facilities, and equipment already owned by the town will be moved to the new substation. The new building will be energy efficient and net zero ready. A change in the location of the police department will not change how the community engages with the police department. Law enforcement employees will continue to patrol and support all sections of town as they always have. This includes our dedication to community policing in the downtown corridor. A new police department with a fire substation will solve the needs regarding safety, security, and space for both the police department and fire departments.
Hi, I'm Rustine, the town manager. This year, the town is again planning to put forward a warrant article for this project. The project costs have escalated by 7.5% to $17,522,500. This increase is due mainly to construction inflation. The town would secure a 20-year bond at an estimated 3.65% interest rate. What does this mean for the average taxpayer? Based on current valuations, the project would cost 68 cents per thousand of assessed valuation for a $300,000 home, which equates to $203 per year. For a $400,000 home, it equates to $270 per year. As part of the capital improvement program, the guiding document for planning capital needs for the town, the planning board has endorsed this project.
To sum up, I'd like to go over some numbers. In 1979, the public safety building had 44 employees occupying that building, and now the building is bursting with 70 employees, new equipment, and new staff responsibilities. This project would build a facility that will serve our residents for the next 30-plus years. I am proud that the town of Exeter has continued to support its first responders. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this important video. I encourage all residents with any questions to reach out to any of the select board members or the town manager's office. More information about the project can be found on the town website with important dates, related meetings, and much, much more.
That is very well done.
Slick.
Not as good as an ABC after special, but I liked it.
I'd like to comment further on it, but I understand in my absence.
I got it.
Thank you.
Chris just had a recall vote. Nico is now our new chair.
Yeah. Laugh every time. Actually, we're going to take turns.
Did you have anything else, Dave?
Yeah, I did. I just want to, I don't know, that's a tough act to follow. But I just want to go over just reinforce the site evaluation options, and I've heard it from several people and on this highlight, to keep the policing downtown. It was addressed by the chief, Chief Poulin, Deputy Chief McCain is here. They can also speak to it, but we did look at that. We discussed that at the Facilities Advisory Committee, and we looked at 3032 Court Street in the effort to see if we could keep the police department downtown. And it was also, we looked at a combined facility at 20 Court Street, raising that. But we determined that neither one of those, it couldn't fit on 3032 Court without even getting to the fact that there are historic structures there that people were concerned about it being removed, and also Meals on Wheels, the senior center, and the existing rec department building. But it really couldn't fit down there. And then 20 Court Street was tight to put both, but it didn't. That project was even more expensive route than what was ultimately decided upon, and it wouldn't have solved the second two fire station configuration. We still would have had to go out and done a second station. So, and also no relocation. You'd have to relocate. If you did anything there, you'd have to temporarily relocate the police and fire. It's considerable expense for a couple of years. So it wasn't, we tried to review that, but we weren't able to do that. So after the preferred alternative was to leave the main fire station at 20 Court Street and construct a new police station with a fire substation, we decided to look at Court Street, because we've heard from the Facilities Advisory Committee and others have mentioned, what are you going to do with 20 Court Street? Is there going to be another, multi-million-dollar project, coming right after? And what I did is I did an analysis that I'd just like to share with you. I'll be as brief as possible. I looked at, basically included two categories. I looked at the building, the facility and its components, just as if nobody's in it, doesn't matter. It's just the building and its components, the HVAC. And then I looked at space and operational needs. And I examined all the prior reports, and I culled out all relevant statements on either one of these from all the studies that I mentioned before. And the building itself, I don't want to rehash it too much. Judy already mentioned it, that we did a facilities condition assessment. And we hired Bureau Veritas to conduct it and look at all the structure and the components. The architectural, they determined it's a 44-year-old two-story building, brick veneer, concrete block, gable wood, asphalt shingles, and the interior is comprised of painted drywall, concrete block. Shorter-term projects include replacement of the various flooring materials, the acoustic ceiling tiles, wall painting throughout. Longer-term items include minor tuck pointing and window replacements. For mechanical, they concluded that since 2018, a number of HVAC and fire protection components have been replaced, leaving few other systems requiring attention. The site, the overall appearance of this building and its grounds are well maintained. The parking lot and driveways do not have major damage. However, they will need to be repaired, sealed, and restriped in the coming years to maintain integrity. And they comment on lighting that it could be improved by switching over to LED. And they do not recommend any additional studies after that was done. And this slide really tells a lot, because this is the system expenditure forecast that they did for every building of what they foresee as the investment needed in the near term, immediate need, short term, near term, midterm, and long term. And the first two columns, the immediate need, you go down for all of the systems, is they recommend no money is needed immediately, and no money is needed in short term. You don't get into...
This is just for 20 Court Street.
This is just for 20 Court Street, yes. And you don't get into the near term until the 3 to 5 year, and that's where the flooring comes into play, and the things that they've identified that are going to be need replaced, and it's all really routine maintenance for this building. So the building is pretty good shape. So the space needs assessment and recommendations, when it was done, and all these issues of what's going on at 20 Court Street was done before we knew the preferred option of what we were going to do. So they had analyzed it as if the police and fire were both there. They didn't analyze it through the lens of what if a new police station, fire substation is built on Continental, now what will be the deficiencies be? So that's the analysis, the next progression of analysis that I did. So I culled all of the statements, and there's a lot of them. I'll be brief and go through them, but you can see that I've passed out a copy so everyone can have and take it and read it. But each in the black text is the need that was identified in the reports, and then the red text is what will happen. And you'll see on this one, the town of Exeter evaluate the development of a 2-unit substation. This will be solved with the new facility at 6 Continental. The second one, if a 2-unit substation, this will be solved with the facility. The EOC should be reorganized and cabinets created for dedicated consoles and equipment. This would further restrict space and limit capacity, but optimize the use of the space in the short term. The EOC is undersized. It came up in all the several reports. But this will be solved in the as the new EOC will be located in the new facility as part of the multi-use public space room of about, I think it's 782 square feet, where the existing one's probably, 400 or so. So it's about double the size. It'll act as it will accommodate emergency operations center for Exeter. This goes again. These will be solved. This is some of them have been solved. The existing system should be maintained and repaired. Yes, we think that's boilerplate language. The use of automatic aid from adjacent communities for any structural response should be expanded. That has been solved. I talked to the chief the other day. They have already implemented that suggestion. So it's really good to see these studies are getting implemented by the fire department already. There's a couple things. There are a couple things. The personal protective storage area should be petitioned off from the apparatus floor and properly climate controlled, ventilated, protected from UV light. That's an issue that will remain, and we are exploring options how to address that include possibly petitioning off the locker area. I'll sum these up at the end too. The use of double occupancy rooms will be solved. Personal equipment personal and equipment decontamination should be marked. That has been solved. That's the picture on the right, because the new modern way of thinking in a fire department is when you come back, you've been exposed to a chemical fire. You get things on your equipment, on your so forth. So you do kind of a gross decon in the field, and then you come back and you should get out and go into like a decontamination area, get all off and rinse, and then when you enter your living quarters, the ready room, the kitchen, you're clean and you don't carry those contaminants into the structure. That is one thing that will remain, but I can talk about that in a little bit. Turnout gear should be restricted to the apparatus bays. This has been solved. The physical fitness area in that picture should be partitioned from the apparatus floor, separated from the potential contaminants because it's in the ladder bay apparatus. But that will be solved because it will relocate the fitness room to the the area currently utilized by the police department. Existing space, storage will all be solved with the new building and facility at 6 Continental. The current configuration of the parking is a problem, but there's 4 staff and all of the police. The majority of the parking is going to go away. So it's almost going to, all those parking issues that are over there will go away. I mean, there's even you could even have a discussion about that corner parking lot that's kind of problematic, if you will.
That extra wide road?
Yeah, that extra wide road right there and pedestrian crossing, but there could be thoughts about closing that in because it's no longer warranted. The generator and utilities was not secured. That picture, that fence has been done, so that has been solved. A video monitoring system has been put in. That was a recommendation that's already been done. The general lack of administrative space for both fire and police, that issue will be solved with the new facility. The all storage areas will be solved. And this one I'll take a second on because I know, good conversation on this. There is a lack of American Disabilities Act compliance and easy public access to some administrative areas. This will remain. And this says there's a lack of ADA compliance. When you build a building, the building was in compliance. It's not out of compliance or in violation, it just doesn't meet the current requirement. One of the biggest things on there is the installation of an elevator to access the second floor. You can access the building and the downstairs, but you cannot get to the second floor. So the town could consider the installation of an elevator. So there's some IT issues. They talk about, space is limited, but I met with IT and we went over there and it looks like half the equipment is old and could be removed and you'd have double the space. You'd create all the space you needed. It's just people leave the old equipment and abandon it, The training room, the EOC cannot accommodate additional consoles. That will all be solved by the new facility. Lack of gender-specific locker rooms, all shower restrooms. This has been solved with the additional 2 bathroom facilities that made the emergency center, what is it, communication center? Yeah, the emergency communication, the ECC, made it smaller, but now will be solved with moving over. Living quarters will be solved because there was going from 7 people over there now to 4, so the triple bunk room that will be reclaimed for storage and so forth. Let's shift. The shift commander's office combined with his dorm room. This will be solved with the new facility. The triple occupancy dorm space. the lack of space to house additional personnel during storm or multiple operational events. You house 7 people over there. You have your bunk rooms with 2 beds now. You could add folks in this, but it will go back to single occupancy, but there's room for more multiple occupancy in the event of a major event of some kind. So let me just go through. You get the picture, you can read it, solved, all of these issues, and I'm going to go through, because I want to just sum it up. In summary, the facilities condition assessment completed by Bureau Veritas concluded that there are no immediate needs for the building and it's in overall good condition. The Exeter Fire Department spatial needs analysis completed by Municipal Resources, Inc. stated that this station, 20 Court Street, is functional and well-maintained, but it is currently being utilized beyond its capacity. So we are reducing its capacity by building this new police station and fire substation. So out of the 47 needs identified in all the reports, only 6 will remain to be addressed. The issues that will remain are proper gear storage, ADA accessibility to the second floor, the size of the front apron, the width and height of the apparatus bays, and the lack of decontamination space. It was stated earlier in the thing, we didn't go over it, but only raising half of the building will solve the front apron and apparatus bay issues. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. So doing a cost-benefit analysis, it's like, are you going to tear down half a building to improve your front apron space? I don't make the decisions, but we provide the information to make informed decisions and make recommendations, and we don't feel that is worth it at this time. So after careful analysis of 20 Court Street, town administration, police administration, fire administration, myself, do not recommend raising the site, nor do we see any major capital improvements needed for this building at this time. The building and its components are well maintained and functional. The only space configuration and operational issues that remain are ADA accessibility, proper gear storage, and a decontamination area. If desired, the town could further explore addressing these unresolved matters without needing a major renovation of the existing facility. You're talking, you could do the decontamination and the proper gear storage by renovating about 500 square feet of the 18,800 square foot building over there, about 2.5% of the building. So we do not foresee any multi-million-dollar CIP projects coming down the road that is functional. There are some minor issues that I didn't even, worth putting in a presentation, but the sign says Exeter Police. Well, we got to change the sign. There's Exeter Police Department on the windows. We got to remove that. They might want to break through from the fire station to the police station administration to get access to that space. But those are all minor in-house things that can be done in-house and wouldn't rise to the level of a CIP item. So I just wanted to, thank you for that. I just wanted to take the time to address that issue because it has come up in various settings and show that the new facility will really address almost all of the issues in all of the prior reports.
So Bob,
Excellent work, Dave.
Point of just saying, I commissioned Dave to do this deep dive into the 20 Court Street property due to all the issues that have been raised in the past several months about it, and I just want to recognize his efforts. He did a great job.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is fantastic.
Well done. We just got to get that word out to the public.
Is that something that can be converted into like a PowerPoint that could be put on the website, or is there any?
Yeah, it is a PowerPoint.
The answers to some of the questions is excellent text that can somehow be made very public.
Yeah, I can.
I mean, the video is great too. I mean, we should have at the end of the video, it'd be worth having our own Dr. Zwan as the stater of the obvious. It's sort of summarizing everything. Not me. The video is great.
You have to state the obvious.
More public exposure to some of those answers.
Yes.
Excellent work. Thank you, Russ, for pushing that.
That was a really good one.
Quick question for Dave. Assuming that maybe the bays are going to ultimately be found to be too small for the trucks that remain on that site, the fire trucks, does the study, or is there, with your skill set, will it be feasible to widen those bays?
No, because the problem with that is you got the tower on the right and you have all the utilities. You got your generator, all your subsurface material, your electrical coming in on that right side. So to remove the tower and expand that way would be major relocation of some utilities. Not that you couldn't do it, but then the problem is the apparatus bay is connected to the living quarters. They're part of that back of that building. So as soon as you try to get into widening anything, you got to tear down and rebuild. But what I can say is that it's fire trucks, when this was built, were about 8 feet wide, even before this. Now they're maximum 8.5 feet. So they've only grown about 6 inches in width. And they can't be more than 8.5 feet for DOT standards for the road, to be road eligible. So I don't foresee the, trucks getting wider than 8.5 feet, because that's what they are now, and state law, US DOT too, federal, they won't let you.
Maybe I didn't ask my question well, but
okay.
It's been represented that the bays are too narrow and that we're banging into the sides of the bays with the existing trucks.
There was the ladder truck.
Yeah.
The ladder truck, they did do a widening because they couldn't fit it. Didn't they widen the ladder truck for a little bit too?
None, all the openings you measured, I measured at 12 feet wide.
No, I know, but for the ladder bay, they already did do a little bit of height.
We raised the header by 8 inches because we knew when we built it, if we had a year, that the truck was going to be too high for the door that was there. So the only bay in that building the ladder could fit in is the bay it's in, because it's 13 feet long instead of 12. But the width is the width, and mirror to mirror, it's tight, no doubt about it. To answer your question, to not get into a ton of depth, if we take apparatus off that floor, there will be a vacant bay, if you will, on the floor.
Okay.
I asked the question of an architect, could we take 4 doors and make 3 doors?
That's kind of what I was
going.
going.
And they kind of cocked their head sideways like, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it would take a significant doing of replacing footings, the steel beam that holds up the second floor. Could it be done?
Yeah.
Sure. Is it planned? No.
Okay.
But
you're going to have empty bays in between the apparatuses that you're going to have in the building.
Correct. And the only time it was a hit incident was the ladder truck.
Yeah.
That's what has the tightest on the the ladder truck on the far left bay. There is talk about possible deployment. They're going to figure out where the ladder truck makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that ladder truck could end up, I'm not saying it will, it could end up in the news station, which doesn't have that issue. And so that bay could become, repurposed. So the only real main issue is the ladder truck.
I think you've answered my question. Thank you. Chris?
Great report on this, Dave. I think probably, at least from my perspective, I was all for this last year. The need, to me, was demonstrated last year. I think you guys did a great job of better articulating the needs this year, which is great. I think voters are going to want to know maybe this support information almost up front. I really encourage us to find a way to get the system expenditure forecast and all that kind of stuff in front of people as they're making their decisions on their vote. Because I have some of the same concerns that Dr. Swan had, that some of the things that we talked about that were deficiencies in the current fire station, and now that a significant portion of the fire equipment is still going to stay there. The bay size was a thing that was a topic last year. So I'm glad we're talking through this. My big question is, and my big concern with the new facility is, I'll ask straight up, is it going to be natural gas fired?
We haven't gotten to final design.
Okay, because we had a lot of discussion about this last year. You and I did, and the whole committee did, and the select board, and you were able to really take a look at things and make sure that the money was in there to make sure this thing was beyond net zero ready, which is sort of a developer speak for, we got a good tight wrap. We're still going to fire with natural gas and fossil fuels, but should we ever want to plug something in, we can. I'm afraid when we move forward to the building that in the CIP is listed for a 50 to 100 year use, which, that's a long time. I think we owe it to the town and the taxpayers to make sure that this thing is as green as possible up front, and making sure that we're electrified, and that if we can't swing panels or whatever, we're at least buying from community power and we're electrified for everything, and not turning on a fossil fuel. I just couldn't imagine breaking ground on a brand new building for our town with our taxpayer money and firing it with fossil fuels.
Duly noted. I mean, we, the select board supported, and the energy committee supported making it, adding the 3% or so, whatever that cost was identified in the report. And when we get to final design, we'll have serious discussions about that.
I just hate to see that, because I know construction costs have gone up, and I hate to see that fall victim to just trying to squeak a better price through,
But that's why it's 17.5 too, and not it's 16.3, because we went back to the cost estimator and asked them what has happened to the market, and what is 16.3
going to get us
last year? What is it today? What is it going to be next year? And it's going to. And he said 17.5.
So you feel comfortable it's still apples to apples?
That's what based on the estimator. We called them. We said, what if we do the same exact thing? What is it going to cost a year out? Because our original buyout was 24, and now it'll be 25. And I asked him that specific question. He said add 7.5%, and that's exactly how the 16.3 went to 17.5, because of that 7.5% escalation. So in theory, if the estimators were right, we should have the money to do what they've said we would, we can do.
Great, thank you.
Tom?
No, you answered it.
Okay, so to summarize, this is about a $17.5 million project. As Russ said, it'd be a 20-year bond. Annual payments would start in FY25 at approximately $1.577 million per year. The impact to the basic taxpayer would be somewhere in the $230 to $270 per year, depending on the valuation of your house. Anything to add, Judy or Tim, as the subcommittee?
We're fully in support. We'd like to get a new building where people can work efficiently, safety, without the liability risks that currently exist. Be able to recruit and retain officers and firefighters who are happy to work there.
Great. Tim?
Yep. So I'll just say I was one of the evil 45 voters last year, voted against this. And if I had seen all this information last year and knew all these issues, I 100% would have voted for it. So going back to what Chris said, I think we need to get it in front of the voters.
Amanda? Thank you.
So I just have a question. The useful life is up 50 to 100 years. That's of the building structure itself. I just have a question. So in the video, it said when the first building was built, it had 44 employees. Now there's 70 employees. So how many employees will this new building be able to, like what's the growth up employee-wise, not just building-wise?
Good question.
I'll be honest, man, I didn't take that number very seriously, the 50 to 100 years. There's no way to forecast that.
It's of the building,
It's not
not of the staff.
The useful life of a building is
So
50.
even if it's 30,
might last
what's the
longer.
staff?
The useful
Is the
life.
staff
There
30
is some
years?
growth space
capacity.
with the infamous, I don't know if we dare say the deck, but that space, there is some growth space there.
There is that, but it also took into account, like you saw a brief snippet of the male locker room. You literally couldn't fit more of us walking in.
Right.
There's no lockers left. They're gone. There's one female locker left because there was no female police officers in section 9. So we took that into account. So at least with the growth space for if there was officers in the next 30, 40 years, if the town develops to where we need more officers and they get put in, there is built in a cushion to where we could accommodate more officers. If the town doesn't grow, then there's no need for extra police officers. We're at a good policing standpoint right now, without knowing what the population would be in 40 to 50 years for the town of Exeter. I can't tell you how many more officers you might need, or we might not need any. However, there is
sufficient built-in room for at least accommodating more officers, more workspace or workstations as well. That was taken into account.
Do you have like a percent more that it could accommodate, like 10% more?
Well, what are you accommodating?
We don't have a comment, but we don't have, I have it in my office. That what we asked LBA to do is, look, when they did this space needs, okay, what's the square footage that we need today? And then they projected the current year when they did it, 2022, 2030, and 2040. Basically a 20-year horizon. They didn't look to 50 and 100. I think that'll be for somebody else. But for the 20-year, the 240 had the square footage needs based on growth, prior growth. And this new facility will accommodate any consistent growth that we've seen, historic growth to 2040. And then it could be, if it continues, but who knows if the town grows, it grows faster, grows slower, but we bake that in.
That's also super important information. I think would be great to have that in the description, I think, for people to understand.
Yeah, we're looking forward to drones in the future that will facilitate this work. We don't have to worry about making room.
It's interesting you talk about the useful life of a building. I can point to right now over a dozen city firehouses that are 100 years old and functioning well. And I'll put to you, some of you will be young enough to live long enough that this building at 20 Court will be approaching 75 and 80 years old and still be a useful facility. It's going to be almost 50 years old when we get to move into the substation as we start talking about 2026 and beyond. It's going to be creeping up to 50 years old. So it's not far-fetched to believe a structure well-built with the bricks and mortar and the features that LBA has designed will serve the town for that length of time. Now, will it be large enough and accommodate? Those are great questions, but the facility, it's rock solid, and I think that was pointed out by all the studies. To answer your question on the fire side, if we have 4 firefighters to start, just like the building was built in '78, there's one extra bunk room that the captain probably uses as an office to kind of split it up, and the building at 6 Continental has one extra bunk room that we're going to use as an office, so each building could accommodate one additional person should somebody down the road decide to staff with a larger staff. Each facility could fit one more person without any change in double bunking and everything else. So those 2 little things have been built in. But I just want to know if we're hiring any more people. So.
Thank you.
And one more point with the new facility, there is a exterior out back. We removed some square footage off it, but now it's off the back, so it's only on the first story. But that area is going to be built structurally sound, so you could add that to the second floor.
I'm glad to hear
so there's about 400 square foot of space there, I think, ish. That could be added to the back on that second story.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, you don't want to build it too big because you don't want to build something like, in case I need it in 20 years, but there is room for addition.
At least structurally designed.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. It's structurally designed to accommodate. We proposed it as an outdoor deck in the interim, and then it could be enclosed. It could be enclosed space in the future.
That's great. Excellent. Well, I appreciate Dave and the chiefs assistant chiefs for being involved in this and the new TikTok stars in town.
Yeah, nice video.
Yeah, he's going to work on the music, really. That's it, yeah.
Judy, chair of the subcommittee, what's your pleasure?
I propose that we support the public safety complex as outlined on page 3 with the funding mechanism described here.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There will be no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
There has been discussion of how to pay parking tickets and so forth downtown so that there were people who don't have vehicles to go out. That was one of your concerns, that they would be able to pay it, might be a lockbox at the town offices, or there was something else proposed. Anyway, there are mechanisms for people to.
I just don't like a $17 million asset I can't see for 75 years. I just think we kick the can on other things.
Fair enough.
We found good solutions. Not that you guys don't need the space and a solution, I just don't like this one.
Democracy in action. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to water and sewer items. The first of which is on page 2 of the CIP book, the surface water treatment plant. Just a sort of a brief summary of this, a new surface water in view of growing water and sewer service area and limited new water sources. The town embarked on a design of a new surface water plant to be built behind, or approximately where the new gun club is, off of Portsmouth Avenue in 2004. It went up for a vote twice, back-to-back years, in 04 and 05. It was voted down narrowly both times. The erstwhile snowstorm limited numbers in one of the years, but regardless. So we changed tact, went whole force into looking at groundwater sources to supplement the surface water sources, and that culminated in 2015 with a new plant off of Larry Lane. Despite all of that, and that's been very helpful in supplying the town with good, clean drinking water and diversifying our sources, the surface water plant, the existing one, has miraculously continued to get older, as facilities sometimes do. Parts of this facility are over 100 years old, and most of them are over 50 years old. So this is a critical component. There have been studies done for the past year and a half on the design capabilities of both groundwater as well as surface water, and the bottom line is the existing facilities that we have are somewhat limited if the population of the town grows too much more. And we're also dangerously close to if critical pieces of equipment go down at the wrong time, which tends to be the way things go, we would be in a limiting water supply situation. So we need to look at, again, after 18 years, a new surface water plant. The original idea was to get into design next year with construction to follow. Due to a number of meetings and folks involved, including Public Works and the management team, it was decided that there was perhaps some preliminary work that could be done before actually getting into design, because there were some questions, especially with the groundwater process proceeding ahead, as to exactly how big the plant would need to be and what form it would take. So instead of the design and the construction, there's been sort of a change where we would go for it'd be a $500,000 bond that would be split up over 2 years, FY24 and FY25, to do some more sizing and siting. The siting would be the critical thing, as well as just what the ultimate, sort of like the Public Works garage. What's the exact layout of this facility is going to be? But the bottom line is it needs to happen sometime probably in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is sort of an introductory planning step as opposed to jumping right into design when we really don't know what the design would look like. So Steve, if you want to add anything to that, or Paul?
I think you summed it up very well. This is termed design optimization phase, where it takes all those moving parts and then solidifies that to understand what you would be designing at a later date.
Similar to some of the questions we've had on other discussions tonight, in anticipation of, all right, well, what's this money going to go for? We had our consultant come up with sort of a list of items that needed to be attended to before we could size the plant or even, site it somewhere. And in, I think it was the end of October, 24th is my recollection, that we got a memo from Underwood Engineers that outlined a 15-point to-do list, which sort of fits quite well with that $500,000 over the course of 2 years. It melds quite nicely with the groundwater source review that we're currently in the middle of, and it sort of brings everything to a head in the next couple of years. Making the finish line together instead of sort of in fits and starts. So I thought this was a nice little compromise. The Water and Sewer Subcommittee likes this approach as well, and that's the direction that the subcommittee is recommending. Any questions?
This is absolutely mind-boggling to look at the large, long-term figure when we just talked about $17.5 million.
Yeah, it is. So in '04 and '05, it was slated to be a $17 million plant, but that was going to be for 3 million gallons a day, which would be basically a build-out of the entire town. This is for a facility that's probably about half that size. And, obviously it's going to be about 20 years later. But yeah, it's, just the regulations associated with treating water, in rivers and lakes is just dramatic, between some of the forever chemicals, the PFAS and PFOAs and arsenic and things like that are just mind-boggling.
Bob, your point is a good one, because even had we built that building, 15 plus years ago, we probably wouldn't be meeting the regulations as they are today, and you'd be spending multi-millions of dollars to get to where we need to be today, I'm guessing.
Yeah, in all probability. That's a scary thought.
No, we have no idea if and when any infrastructure money will be available. Is this the kind of project that if we begin the conceptual part, that it makes us more ready for monies that might become available that we could take advantage of?
So the hope on this is that we would apply for the drinking water supply program to perhaps be able to generate some principal forgiveness off a low-interest loan that would go through DES. That's one avenue. And then we can look at EPA grants as well and see if there's money out there for this kind of thing.
Unfortunately, I've been involved in water and sewer engineering for a number of years, and unfortunately there's a lot of money generally available for sewer issues and projects, not as much for water. They're trying to change that, because obviously there's health and safety issues associated with drinking water, but people were back in the 70s when EPA started, and even into the early 2000s, they were more concentrated on end of pipe solutions as opposed to top of pipe solutions. So. But, like Russ said, we'll give it a go. Any other questions? So on behalf of the subcommittee, I would make a motion that we fund a $500,000 ostensibly 2-year planning program where we would do preliminary design and siting and sizing analysis for a future new surface water treatment plant.
And I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Just one, and it's just a head scratcher for me. I'm not a civil engineer, town planner, and I'm sure we have really bright people here. I'm flummoxed that I continue to see more and more development in town, right? More and more pressure on, more and more demand on the infrastructure. And I know we have tax incentives around for different areas of town, things like that. And then, I just can't stop going to $28 million. And I'm just wondering when we think about permitting and things like that, are we looking to these people for increased funding for the additional pressure on our infrastructure? Are we considering that maybe we need to cap our development because the infrastructure, at some point, there's a limit to what we'll be able to throughput for water and sewer and everything else. And, and I think about the burden on the current water and sewer ratepayers, and it's head spinning. Yet I ride my bike out Watson Road and watch more houses going up, and it's just a head scratcher. So
the good news is they're not on the water.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'll smile next time I ride by.
Well, this is a replacement, again, this is a replacement for our plan.
Sure.
So we're looking at the cost in that context.
I would defer to the town experts, but I will just respond to it by saying that 20 years ago, when I arrived in this town, I served on the planning board, and I had exactly the same concern. And, I was just flummoxed, and I was like, don't send that water or sewer out Epping Road. And I've done a total 180 on it because we need as many ratepayers on the system as we can to carry the burden of this incredibly old, dilapidated system. So I've done a total 180 on it from that perspective. So I just would invite you to think of it that way too.
It's a bit of a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But and as someone said a minute ago, you're replacing. It was Russ. You're replacing a facility that just needs to be replaced, and we need as many ratepayers on the system to pay for that. And let's not forget the sewage treatment plant to carry the burden. So I've done a total 180 on that one. I just want to tell you.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, we haven't done the nice dog and pony show like we did for fire, but when this was built in the to the current level in the 1950s, the population of the town was even less. Regulations were significantly less, and it's just it's a facility that is seriously on its last.
It's worthy of a tour. It's quite impressive.
When does the wastewater treatment plant get paid off?
Yeah, that's what we should do this project.
What's that?
Pay off the other one.
When does the bond for the wastewater treatment plant?
2038.
Okay.
Piece of cake.
Hold on.
Some more putty.
As Samuel L. Jackson says, hold on to your buttons.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to support a preliminary planning 2-year program at $500,000 as opposed to a full design.
Sure, why not?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
This just feels horrible, like we're leaping off a cliff.
Yeah.
Write your
Do you hate this job too, Judy?
write your congressman. They can get maybe get the laurel money. Okay, on to some actually better news. The septic receiving facility on page 31. As part of the design of the new wastewater treatment plant in the late teens and implemented in 2018. Hard to believe we're a quarter of the way through that payment cycle already. We've already shed, almost $1 million in debt service on that, something like that. There is a septic receiving facility, which is basically septic tank pumpings from obviously non-sewered areas, not only in Exeter, but throughout the Seacoast area. And this had some fairly limited scope to it when it was first put in. We're looking to build an expanded facility that can it'd be taking the same amount of material, but we'd have I think, more capabilities hourly, right? Instead of a day basis, it'd be almost a 24-hour basis.
It wouldn't necessarily be a 24-hour basis, keeping it open, because we'd still want to have some kind of control over what the wastewater treatment plant's coming and getting. We wouldn't want anybody to come in and dump anything that wasn't.
But I thought there'd be security access.
There is security access. There would be access for emergency type dumpings if they needed to, with authorization.
Okay.
We could accommodate that for sure.
So in 2022, Public Works did a pilot study to see what exactly we could process through the plant. And we can, and also sort of what kind of revenues we could generate from this. And they looked at a range of 8 cents to 12 cents a gallon that was charged in the area. We currently charge 8 cents a gallon, which gives us, generates net revenues of, I think, around $135,000.
Roughly.
Somewhere in that range. When we build this facility, in my view, and I think the subcommittee's view, this is going to be a state-of-the-art facility and one of the go-to places in the seacoast. And I think in general, we support the project, but we would also like to see the fees
tripled. Yeah.
The fees get to a point that where we would pay for this 100% out of revenue. So there would not be a bond. There would not be. We would take the money out of reserves and then repay that with annual revenues. But the subcommittee felt like it would be important to be more at the top end of the range of fees in the area rather than the low end. So we had just had a rate study commissioned this summer and fall that the select board have, I think, agreed on the rate study, but as part of the rates, there is a septic receiving fee of 8 cents a gallon, and the subcommittee is recommending that we bump that up to 12 cents a gallon when this facility is built to enhance our revenue stream.
So, point of information too, just on this project, that the select board has signed off on the project already, and sewer reserves are the funding source for the project.
Right.
And also, before the septic facility was closed temporarily, we were actually getting ready to increase the septic receiving rates, but we couldn't raise them when we weren't collecting septic. So I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we're doing this is we're the select board's recommendation committee, so we're recommending that. They obviously can do what they want, but that's our recommendation. So, again, this is there won't be a bond. There will not be any debt on this. It will be paid for out of sewer reserves and subsequent revenues. But I would like to memorialize a recommendation to maximize the revenue stream. So on behalf of the subcommittee, I'd like to move a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to implement a fee of somewhere in the 10 to 12 cents per gallon and adjusted thereof to the market as we go forward.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Discussion, I'd like to tie your recommendation to the CPI or something like that, Consumer Price Index, because if we're not moving it up with inflation like everything else, we're losing, so.
Excellent.
Just as a point of information in the discussion phase, in my casual conversations with people that work in this business, Exeter is losing out currently on a substantial amount of business or revenue. Let's put it this way: revenue, which of course can be used to offset not just this project but the whole sewage treatment plant. So I think it's a worthy thing to consider.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is on page 32, sewer capacity rehabilitation, phase 1. This is a sort of an ongoing project to do a complete analysis and upgrade design-wise to sewer capacity issues, especially in some bottleneck areas in town, cross-country areas, and that sort of thing. My understanding is parts of this are in design right now? Is that
Yeah,
sort of
in
true?
FY '23, $380,000 was approved for the design of this particular cross-country pipe that starts at High Street Bridge, goes up to the old Gilman Lane location where the new PE is, and then goes cross-country parallel on High Street out towards Drinkwater Road. That is under design now, and we anticipate a bid package being prepared not until fall of 2024.
Okay. So this amount, the amount that was in the CIP, about $3.4 million, was basically the construction aspect of this project. As Paul articulated, it wouldn't even come to fruition until the end of next year. The subcommittee felt that with the School Street project, that really you sort of do one or the other. We just don't have the bandwidth right now to do both, and we felt that the School Street project was more important. So the management team had recommended deferring this project, and the subcommittee supported that decision.
And that was a one-year deferral, as you heard from Paul.
Well, at least.
I guess we'll see.
We will see. So, any further questions? I'll move on behalf of the subcommittee to support the management team's deferral of this project at this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The last item for projects is the Webster Ave Pump Station on page 36. This is a project that was approved in 2022. It was actually developed and reviewed by the BRC in the fall of 21, approved for FY '22. In that time, that during the design and preliminary construction, or the design phase, costs for some of the items went up significantly. So we're looking at an additional $884,000 that's required for that project that was discussed 2 years ago. So this would be a 10-year bond, a state SRF fund, annual payments of a little less than $124,000. Andrew.
I just have one question. How common is this, where you get into the construction phase and the price goes up by what looks like, I don't know what percentage this is, but it's a significant amount of money. Is this what we can expect from other projects currently on the books, like West Side Drive or at the police and fire substation?
Well, you guys can, basically this is a lot of equipment and facility oriented versus pipes, but which help, but Paul.
Yeah, and also this project was around the COVID times, and that's when they coined the term covigency instead of contingency. There was material supplies. It was, yeah.
Okay.
So we're on the tail end of that now. We knew for a while that there would be cost escalations. This is just about ready to go out to bid when?
December 8th.
December 8th, with bids due back in January 8th, so that we would have a firm number of what we would need instead of just going with the engineer's estimate of $884,000.
So will we have a deliberation session, an opportunity to revise this number?
You would. That's why we are pushing for the bid to be time.
When are the bids due?
January 8th.
January 8th. So we should be able to, during the public hearing, have the new numbers. the select board public hearing. And then in worst case, the deliberative session.
Understood. Thank you.
Excellent.
So the percentage this is low. This doesn't usually happen. This is a COVID-related issue.
As what we've been seeing when there are escalations to this point, this was out of the ordinary.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Tom, did you have something?
No.
So on behalf of the subcommittee, I will make a motion to support and approve the Webster Ave Pump Station 10-year bond.
And I'll second it. Sorry.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We did it.
Okay, so that's the project.
At one point, you and I were discussing, I was sort of overwhelmed with all the water sewer projects and so forth. And you were saying these things happen in cycles, and we are replacing pipes and so forth, infrastructure that was put in 20, 30 years ago. And we have a general sense of where we are in that replacement program.
It's a long list.
Would this be that list?
No, that's vertical asset.
Okay.
Versus horizontal.
Horizontal, okay. I didn't have that.
I mean, there's a laundry list of projects that, and then you get situations like Washington Street that weren't really forecast, but, problems came up, and so we had to deal with that.
Just
So-
people ask, my God, will this ever end? Sort of.
The answer is no.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of like having a car, by the time, well, again, a lot of this infrastructure was put in the 60s and the 70s as the town began to grow and the downtown service area began to be developed. And, pipes generally have a life of 50 years. Some of them last 100, some of them last 30. So we're in a zone right now in the last 10 years and probably the next 10 years of having to replace, a lot of pipes.
We need to hire more Romans. There's a lot of Roman aqueducts that are still standing.
Yeah.
And we're obviously getting the wrong crews in
Good
here.
Roman construction guys.
The Romans used, they didn't do it themselves.
Bids, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
They had people doing it for them.
So in order to sort of short circuit the vehicle process here, since it's getting a little late, as you notice on the 8 vehicles that were requested as part of this year's CIP. One of them was the air compressor on page 62, which we had previously discussed on Tuesday, that is being put into the capital outlay projects of the water and sewer divisions, departments. So that will note that is still a CIP item, but it was voted on as part of the capital improvements.
Done.
And then the only other, every other, let's say 6 of the other vehicles outlined here was recommended for management to defer, by management to defer. In the case of water and sewer, we supported those deferrals, as well as on Public Works. We did not get an actual recommendation on the fire vehicle, which we can discuss very quickly, but if anyone has any issues with these management deferrals, we can talk about it, but if not, then
Go right to a vote?
would you like a vote to memorialize the deferrals, or do we need to do that, actually?
That would be great.
Excellent, okay. So Judy, do you have anything specific to talk about with Fire Car 1 and Utility 1?
No, not at all. Be happy with the deferral.
Okay, so, and on the water and sewer and DPW, is that still, our deferrals that we talked about still okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go really quickly, starting with Fire Car number 1, CIP page 44. I'll entertain a motion to defer this purchase.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Entertain a motion to defer fire utility number 1 on page 52 of the CIP.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Fire truck, DPW truck number 33, page 66. Entertain a motion to defer this. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Committee.
I'll do that second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Jeep
51.
51. Water and sewer, that has been deferred. I would make a motion to defer that.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sidewalk tractor 58, again, if you look at the CIP, we did approve a sidewalk tractor last year. The other one, 57. And this, because of that new purchase, management recommended deferring that. And I would move to support that deferral.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Street sweeper replacement, page 72. I would move on behalf of the subcommittee to support the management's deferral of this.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So that leaves us with number 13, the only Crown Vic left in the country.
Is that truly, this is the last?
No.
I mean, the last in Exeter.
Yeah, there's another one.
Where is it?
Number 24.
Where is it?
I say we get
It's over at DPW. It's scheduled to be replaced, but it's still here.
Now, if this proposed replacement vehicle is to be used around wastewater treatment plant,
Yes.
does it need to be a $53,500 vehicle, or can you get a golf cart?
We have a golf cart. It's something similar to that. We have other parts. There's 10 pump stations that the wastewater operators have to actually go out of town, out into the town to monitor, as well as other activities. We do grease trap inspections as well. So there are multiple reasons why the vehicle has to be capable of going off-site, as well as snow removal for these other additional stations.
Snow removal is a big one.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Can you do that in a golf cart? Can you?
Just more stripes. We also have tricycles that they collect the samples in.
Great for
Bicycles? In the good weather, yeah, they have tricycles. They love them. We all love them. They're great. Yeah.
So the bottom line is the Crown Vic is just not quite providing enough capabilities of managing that campus. So
But it's still not
Has
the
great
last.
street
I
cred,
can't
though.
believe it.
I will move on behalf of the subcommittee to support purchase of replacing number 13 Crown Vic.
And I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Wow.
Can we keep the Crown Vic, though?
Put a pedestal downtown or something.
We should
Considering what was
take it
at
to
stake,
Gilman
that's
Park
very-
and drive it into the river.
No, the water
did
intake's
very
right
well.
across the street. We're not doing this.
Steve, before you leave,
Yes.
would you care to comment, given what you've been through on ADA sidewalks and so forth?
I have a much better appreciation for them, I can tell you that.
I was wondering, it
Yeah.
can be exhausting.
It can be,
if
yeah,
you're
it
not,
certainly can be. I have a great appreciation for them now that I'm actually utilizing them.
Okay, so a couple of administrative items here. Over the next 3 months, there'll be various discussion timeframes on this budget. This, we have voted on every item. It will be presented to the select board, and they generally don't discuss it in detail, right? You just sort of accept it, and then you guys talk about it internally, and we have the public hearing. Do we have a date yet for that?
We'd like you December 4th if you're available.
December 4th. Got it. So we will be presenting a summary of this budget to the select board on December 4th. And by we, I mean me and anyone else.
I was gonna say, we mean you, right?
Who has nothing to do on
I was just
Monday.
kidding about being in charge. I was totally kidding.
So then do we have a planned public hearing date yet, Russ?
Well, it's set by statute, so the public hearing for the budget is the third Tuesday in January.
Does anybody know what that is off the top of our head?
I do.
16th.
There you go.
Thank you. Jan 16th, and that's a Tuesday?
Tuesday, yes.
Okay. And then there'll be the discussion at the deliberative session, which will be another opportunity, and that is February
First Saturday.
1st? Third.
17th.
And then, obviously, the vote in March. No snowstorms this year.
Would you just go through those dates once again?
So the select board will accept our budget recommendations. I'll have a brief summary, which I'll send out to all of you. That'll be on Monday, December 4th. Then the public hearing, where they will actually, after their internal discussions, be discussing any changes that they might have, and then to fully accept the budget. That's on January 16th. And then the deliberative session on February 3rd, and the vote on March 12th. Thank you, Russ. Okay.
You said February 3rd, or someone said the third Saturday in February? It's February 3rd, though.
February 3rd.
Thank you.
So to start to close out here, I'd like to ask Nico Papakassis, the chair of the select board. He opened our proceedings in September. I'd like to hear from you, Nico, if you have
A video?
a couple of minutes. Mr. TikTok himself.
I don't know if I need a mic. While I fondly recall, not too long ago, when CIP night would go until 11:30,
Fondly.
I do respect the vice chair's desire to depart before 10 tonight, so keeping that in mind.
I subtle about it, aren't I?
On behalf of the select board, thank you so much for the work that you've done, particularly the last couple of months. I mean, this is such vital work. It's such a vital part of the budget process. And the select board take your recommendations extremely seriously. And we look forward to your report on the 4th. I think we've been able to attend most, if not all, the meetings. Certainly, I've watched the 2 that I missed on TV, and I can't say enough how much this work is appreciated. It's so good to see so many of you coming back year after year. It's a big commitment for a couple of months, but again, it's vital work, and I hope to see you all back next year, and just thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to say a thank you to our chairperson.
I was just going to say.
Just done
Talk
a
about doing a lot of work.
superb
Yeah.
job. So detailed, so many balls in the air that he managed to keep, and being civil to everyone, respectful, and keeping things flowing along.
You taught me that I should do that.
To be civil,
That's
yeah.
a thing.
Be nice.
And you helped me.
They're essential citizens.
Essential citizen is Judy. And I would like to thank all of you. This is, I mean, it's a smaller group than normal, but you guys were all here. You had the great subcommittee feedback and input. Our newbies over here, you guys have found your voice right away, and I really appreciate it. You know, that is somewhat rare. And thank you for
We appreciate it.
everyone's input. And finally, I'd like to thank the management team. A lot of times it's Russ and I sort of hashing through this, but this year, Russ, Melissa, and Corey spent a lot of time before we even saw the budget and really scrubbed through it nicely and provided amazing backup and input throughout the process. And thank you three, and by extension, Dave on the fire, on the public safety complex.
Yeah, and I want to thank all of our
All the
department heads
staff.
who presented
Yes.
to the committee this year, did a great job, and I know Paul's been in his interim public works director role, and he's doing a great job, so.
But he got a 12-point buck out of it, so it's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, I will
Bang that
Entertain a
gavel,
motion to adjourn and elect Chris Suter as our, so moved.
I've done my
Second?
job.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.